Chapter 2871. He knew Hu Huang's strength very well. Unless Little Green made a move, there was no way Hu Huang would fail this time. However, Little Green couldn't make a move because the primogenitors were watching him closely. He knew Hu Huang's strength very well. Unless Little Green made a move, there was no way Hu Huang would fail this time. However, Little Green couldn't make a move because the primogenitors were watching him closely. This was also why the primogenitors hadn't shown any desire to personally take action during this period of time. The main reason was Little Qing. Because the primogenitors had to keep a close eye on Little Qing. At the same time, Little Qing was the greatest threat to them. Other than Little Green, the others were nothing in the eyes of the primogenitors. They might be troublesome, but they definitely weren't dangerous. Therefore, if Little Green made a move, the primogenitors would definitely stop her immediately. In other words, Hu Huang didn't have to worry about Little Green's threat at all. Seeing that Qiu Zhu was still a little hesitant, Hu Huang's face turned serious. "Are you still hesitating about these things? Do you still think you're wrong?" "Not really. I just don't know if the new world is right or wrong. What's there to think about? The winner is always right, and the loser is always wrong. It's that simple. If we win, then the new world is right, and it's the world that everyone wants. What do you think?" Qiu Zhu actually didn't really agree with the creation of the new world. He always felt that the creation of the new world was too hasty and direct. Moreover, there were still many details that needed to be perfected. It wasn't something that could be solved by simply and crudely extracting the emotions and desires of everyone. This was also why Qiu Zhu couldn't reach a consensus with the other primogenitors on many issues. However, things had already developed to this point. Even if Qiu Zhu stopped now, it would be useless. Compared to Qiu Zhu, Hu Huang had thought things through very clearly. Everything was just a matter of winning and losing. Was it wrong to say that the new world was right? Perhaps, but he might not be completely wrong. So to put it bluntly, whether he was right or wrong would be determined by the outcome of the battle. The winner was always right. This had been the truth since ancient times. The loser had no right to speak. Hu Huang stood up and patted Qiu Zhu on the shoulder. "All right, it's been so many years, but you're still so sentimental. You've already come this far. Can you still turn back? I'll be back soon." Hearing this, Qiu Zhu nodded. "Perhaps. Be careful. If possible, try to capture them alive." In the face of Qiu Zhu's sudden words, Hu Huang took a deep look at him. He knew that Qiu Zhu was feeling compassionate, but he didn't point it out. He just left a few words and took a step forward, instantly disappearing into the void. "We'll see. If it's possible, I'll hold back." They didn't know that Hu Huang was already on his way. In the nightmare world, Qin Shuru and the others lived quite peacefully. They spent every day with Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Luan. Of course, Xiao Qing, Bai Ruyue, and Jun Wuyao were also there. Bai Ruyue was naturally the happiest about Qin Shuru and the others' arrival. She didn't care what their cultivations were like, she only cared that they were safe. Xiao Qing and Jun Wuyao heard about the land of creation from the others. After hearing that Qin Shuru and the others had broken through to the World Lord realm with Little Qing's help and that Xiao Chen and the others were still in closed-door cultivation, Xiao Qing and the others relaxed. As long as they were fine, it was fine. Moreover, everyone knew that their trip to the land of creation had been quite smooth and not as bumpy as they had expected. Everything had been quite perfect. Now, they just had to wait for Xiao Chen and the others to come out of closed-door cultivation so that they could start the final battle with the origin world. Just like the past few days, the family chatted in the courtyard and enjoyed a rare moment of leisure. However, at that moment, a figure walked out of the spatial channel in the nightmare world. It was none other than Hu Huang, who had hurried over from the origin world. With his speed, it wouldn't take him long to reach the nightmare world. He had no intention of hiding himself and just openly entered the nightmare awakened world. He was immediately discovered by the people from the Great Rock Palace, and soon, dozens of them surrounded Hu Huang. "Who are you? Facing the Great Rock Palace's cultivators' questions, Hu Huang slightly smiled. Following this, rays of golden light shot out from his body, seeming to casually shoot out in all directions. However, under the envelopment of the golden light, the several dozen Great Peng Palace cultivators that had originally surrounded Hu Huang were instantly killed. The golden light easily pierced through and tore apart their bodies, obliterating their souls. Without even making a move, Hu Huang had dealt with dozens of people. This was not difficult at all for him, and it could even be said to be very simple. It was as simple as eating and drinking, there was no difficulty at all. At the same time, Hu Huang's divine sense spread out. As an ancient being, Hu Huang's divine sense naturally covered a wide range. Soon, a smile appeared on Hu Huang's face as he softly muttered, "Found him." With that, Hu Huang took a step forward, and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. In just an instant, Hu Huang appeared above the Great Rock Palace, and a terrifying pressure descended from the sky. This is... Upon sensing this pressure, the faces of Qin Shuru and the other women who had been chatting and laughing immediately sank. Without any time to say anything, they all soared into the air and arrived above the Great Rock Palace. In a short time, Qin Shuru, Hundred Flower Fairy, Gu Ling Yao, Tianyua, Hong Xiu, Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, Yin Peng, and the others arrived before Hu Huang. Of course, there were also progenitor realm experts like Xiao Qing and Jun Wuya. Surrounded by so many people, Hu Huang did not seem too worried. Instead, he had a playful look on his face as he swept his gaze over them one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, in the end, Hu Huang's gaze stopped on Qin Shuru, and he said with a smile. "No more, no less. It seems that everyone is here. This saves me a lot of trouble. Who are you?" One of the progenitor realm elders from the Great Rock Palace asked, completely unaware of what Hu Huang was saying. The elder was naturally displeased that this person had suddenly appeared in the Great Rock Palace and acted so arrogantly. Furthermore, there were 8 world lords in the Great Rock Palace right now, so how could they allow someone to act so presumptuously? However, this person clearly didn't understand what kind of person Hu Huang was. As soon as the words left his mouth, Hu Huang glanced at him coolly, then flicked his finger, sending out a beam of golden light. At the same time, Yin Peng sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop! Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations." Chapter 2872. Yin Peng was the first to notice that something was off with Hu Huang. As a world lord, Yin Peng could not see through Hu Huang's strength at all. This undoubtedly meant that Hu Huang's cultivation and strength were above that of a world lord. Yin Peng hurriedly tried to stop him, but it was a pity that everything happened too quickly. Before Yin Peng could finish speaking, Hu Huang's attack had already pierced through the Great Rock Palace ancestor's forehead. Not to mention resisting, the ancestor realm expert did not even have time to react before he was killed. After doing all this, Hu Huang did not change his expression at all. It was as if he had just done something that was not essential. He even smiled as he looked at Yin Peng. Qin Shuru and the others smiled as he said, "Some people are just too noisy. Now we're close." Hearing this, Qin Shuru and the others looked at Hu Huang as if they were facing a great enemy. At that moment, even if they were stupid, they knew that Hu Huang was not a world lord but an ancient being. An ancient being had suddenly descended into the Nightmare Awakened world. What did this mean for Qin Shuru and the others? Even though they had 8 world lords, if they really fought, none of them had the confidence to fight against Hu Huang. Noticing the solemn expressions on everyone's faces, Hu Huang smiled unhurriedly and said, "Look at my memory, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Hu Huang, and I come from the origin world. As for why I'm here, it's very simple. Firstly, I'm here to deal with matters in the Nightmare Awakened world. Secondly, I want to invite Xiao Chen's family and the people from the Saint Palace to the origin world. Since he was here, he might as well deal with matters in the Nightmare Awakened world." Of course, the most important thing was to bring Qin Shuru and the others back. After all, this was an order from the primogenitors, so Hu Huang did not dare to be negligent. Hearing this, Chinshuru and the others looked at each other. The origin world had sent someone from the origin world, and it was an ancient being at that. This matter was quite troublesome. No one had thought that the origin world would send a world master to the Nightmare Awaken world. They stared at Hu Huang as though they were facing a great enemy. It was obviously impossible for them to return to the origin world with him. Hu Huang quickly guessed what everyone was thinking about. However, he didn't mind it and just smiled as he spoke. "Looks like none of you agree? Come and try if you dare," Long Qing replied coldly. Of course, it was impossible for them to proactively follow Hu Huang to the origin world. Although Hu Huang didn't say anything, they weren't fools. They all knew the consequences of going to the origin world. The best result was that their emotions and desires would be taken away, and they would become walking corpses, just like the other warriors. Therefore, even though Hu Huang had given them unprecedented pressure, they still didn't want to follow him to the origin world. Even if they had to fight to the death, they wouldn't go to the origin world. Hu Huang smiled and shook his head in disappointment. "What a pity. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I thought you were all smart people." Then, without waiting for anyone to reply, Hu Huang's figure disappeared without any warning. In the next second, he suddenly appeared in front of Long Qing. Long Qing was caught off guard and couldn't see Hu Huang's movements at all. In the face of this sudden scene, although everyone reacted immediately, they were still half a step too late. Hu Huang gently pressed his palm against Long Qing's abdomen, and then a huge force instantly sent Long Qing flying. "Since you don't want to cooperate, I can only take you away by force." Long Qing, Chinshuru, and the others didn't want to go to the origin world, so it wasn't a big problem. They could just take them away by force. Seeing that Long Qing was sent flying by Hu Huang, Xianyuan Ling, Chinshuru, and the others naturally couldn't turn a blind eye to it. They immediately attacked. Even though they were facing an ancient creature like Hu Huang, they had no intention of retreating. After all, there was no way to retreat now. There was no hope of running away. After all, they couldn't compare to Hu Huang in terms of speed. Therefore, they could only fight to the death. In the face of everyone's attack, Hu Huang was neither in a hurry nor in a hurry. Even though he was surrounded, Hu Huang still had a faint smile on his face because these people couldn't cause him any trouble at all. Although the 8 world lords looked scary, they weren't enough to make Hu Huang take them seriously. He fought against Chinshuru and the other 8 world lords and a group of other warriors by himself. However, the final result was obvious. Hu Huang relied on his powerful strength to crush Chinshuru and the others. He didn't kill Chinshuru and the others. After all, Chiaozu had said that it was best to capture them alive if possible. Although Hu Huang scoffed at this, he still chose to respect Chiaozu and didn't hurt Chinshuru and the others from the sacred palace. However, compared to Chinshuru and the others, the experts from Great Peng Palace didn't receive such good treatment. After sending Yinpeng flying with a palm, Hu Huang sneered in the face of more than a dozen experts from Great Peng Palace who attacked at the same time. "You guys don't receive such good treatment." As he spoke, a golden light appeared around Hu Huang's body. Just like before, rays of golden light shot out from Hu Huang's body, forming rays of golden sword light. In an instant, the surrounding experts of the Great Rock Palace were all killed. They weren't even able to touch the corner of Hu Huang's clothes before they were killed. Everyone present was terrified by such an outcome. This was the absolute difference in strength. They couldn't even get close to Hu Huang. Hu Huang didn't show any mercy to the people from Great Peng Palace. The primogenitors had said that they would bring the people from the sacred palace back, but they hadn't mentioned the Great Rock Hall. Therefore, in Hu Huang's opinion, the people from the Great Rock Hall were dispensable. The battle ended very quickly, and Chinshuru and the others had been injured early on. Hu Huang smiled as he looked at Chinshuru and the others who were struggling to get up. "Alright, this boring game should be over. Let's go back to the origin world with me." As he spoke, Hu Huang's figure disappeared and appeared in front of Chinshuru and the others in the next second. A terrifying pressure completely enveloped Chinshuru and the others, making them unable to resist at all. Even moving was extremely difficult. Everything seemed to be simple to the extreme. In the face of Hu Huang's powerful strength, no one had any power to fight back. However, just when Hu Huang thought that his mission had been easily completed, an indifferent voice came from the sky. "How dare you? Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 2873. Just when everyone thought that they were doomed, including Hu Huang, and that the mission was completed, an indifferent voice was suddenly heard in the sky. Hearing the voice, everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Hu Huang also turned his head. Under everyone's gaze, a spatial crack appeared in the sky, and then Xiaochen strode out of it. Seeing Xiaochen, Qin Shiru and the others were delighted. Xiaochen had come out of closed-door cultivation and had personally come to the Nightmare Awakened world. Hu Huang said in surprise, "Xiaochen." Even though Hu Huang did not know Xiaochen, he had naturally heard of him in the origin world and had seen Xiaochen's portrait. As such, as soon as Xiaochen appeared, Hu Huang recognized him. However, his surprise only lasted for a moment before a smile appeared on Hu Huang's face. He had thought that he would only come to the Nightmare Awakened world to capture Qin Shiru and the others alive. He knew that Xiaochen was the true threat to the primogenitors, but Xiaochen had remained in the creation ground, so the primogenitors could not do anything to him. Who would have thought that his trip to the Nightmare Awakened world would draw out Xiaochen? This was a pleasant surprise. After all, if he could capture Xiaochen alive, it would be much more useful than capturing Qin Shiru and the others. As such, Hu Huang quickly turned his attention to Xiaochen. "I was wondering who it was, so it was you. Looks like I've searched high and low only to find you by chance," Hu Huang said as he coldly laughed as he stared at Xiaochen. That was indeed the case. He had not been able to do anything to Xiaochen, but who would have thought that Xiaochen would come out on his own? This was quite a pleasant surprise. Seeing the smirk on Hu Huang's face, Xiaochen naturally knew what he was thinking. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a cold smirk as well. "Is that so? Talk to me after you've taken me down." Xiaochen had naturally seen how Hu Huang had attacked Qin Shiru and the others, and he knew that Hu Huang was an ancient being. He had never seen Hu Huang before, so he did not know why Hu Huang was working for the origin world. However, that was not important to Xiaochen. After all, Hu Huang was an enemy, and he had attacked Qin Shiru and the others. Fortunately, he had immediately rushed to the Nightmare Awakened world after coming out of closed-door cultivation. Otherwise, it was very likely that Qin Shiru and the others would have been captured by Hu Huang, and that would have been troublesome. This was the first time he was facing an ancient being. Before, Xiaochen definitely would not have chosen to face him head-on and would have only thought of a way to retreat. However, after coming out of closed-door cultivation, Xiaochen's strength was no longer comparable to before. As such, Xiaochen felt quite excited about fighting an ancient being for the first time. He wanted to personally experience just how powerful an ancient being was and how much difference there was between him and an ancient being. Compared to Xiaochen's excitement, Hu Huang was quite relaxed. This was because Hu Huang knew that Xiaochen only had the cultivation of a world lord. As for whether Xiaochen had broken through during this time, Hu Huang was not worried at all. This was because ordinary beings had reached the limit after becoming a world lord, and it was impossible for them to advance any further. As such, even if Xiaochen cultivated bitterly for hundreds or thousands of years, he would not be able to break through the barrier of becoming a world lord. As such, Hu Huang was naturally not worried. In front of an ancient being, a world lord could only be beaten up. However, Hu Huang had evidently forgotten something, which was that Xiaochen had gone to the land of creation, where the world spirit was. As such, not only had Xiaochen broken through to become a world lord, but he had also obtained a comprehensive new life. His life level was not any weaker than an ancient being like Hu Huang. Xiaochen did not know what Hu Huang was thinking, and he was not interested in it at all. He did not wait for Hu Huang to reply as soon as he finished speaking. His body disappeared from where he was in an instant and appeared right in front of Hu Huang in the next second. Hu Huang was stunned by such a fast movement. After all, this was not a speed that a world lord could possess. Even compared to himself, Xiao Chen's speed was not inferior at all. How could Xiao Chen possess such a fast speed? However, before Hu Huang could think further, Xiao Chen had already attacked. He threw a punch straight at Hu Huang's face. Seeing this, Hu Huang's eyes turned cold and he shouted coldly, "You're courting death." He then threw a punch at Xiao Chen's fist without even bothering to evade. The two fists collided with each other, and the space around them was distorted all of a sudden. Their fists intertwined like a whirlpool in water. To be able to distort the space without shattering it directly, this did not mean that both of them were not powerful enough. On the contrary, to be able to do this, it was enough to prove that both of them were too powerful and had extremely precise control of their power. Under the distorted space, cracks quickly appeared. The space could not withstand the collision of Xiao Chen and Hu Huang's fists at all. The cracks spread out like a spider web. Xiao Chen and Hu Huang also felt a terrifying power from each other's fists. In this regard, Xiao Chen was very calm. Although his strength had improved by leaps and bounds, Xiao Chen still did not underestimate these ancient creatures. He had never underestimated any ancient creature. Therefore, Xiao Chen did not find it strange that Hu Huang could erupt with such power. In fact, if Hu Huang did not even have such power, Xiao Chen would find it strange. After all, he was an ancient creature, an existence second only to the primogenitors. Compared to Xiao Chen's calmness, Hu Huang's mind exploded. Is this the power of AF** King World Lord? It was impossible. One had to know that even though Hu Huang held back in the beginning, after sensing Xiao Chen's power, he continuously increased his strength. At this moment, it could be said that he did not hold back at all. But Xiao Chen still persevered. Besides, as Hu Huang increased his strength, Xiao Chen did not back down and did not fall into a disadvantage at all. If Xiao Chen was really a world lord, he should have been blasted away by Hu Huang's punch. One had to know that no world lord could possibly take a full-powered punch from him. You broke through? Impossible. Hu Huang suddenly realized that Xiao Chen was no longer a world lord. Instead, he had broken through and reached the same level as ancient creatures like them. Hu Huang was appalled. But on second thought, he felt that it was impossible. After all, Xiao Chen was only an ordinary creature and not an ancient creature. How could he possibly break through? This was absolutely impossible. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 2874. Hu Huang was shocked by the strength that Xiao Chen had displayed. At the same time, he was shocked. He could not understand how Xiao Chen had broken through the level of a world lord and reached the level of an ancient creature. Hu Huang was shocked by the strength that Xiao Chen had displayed. At the same time, he was shocked. He could not understand how Xiao Chen had broken through the level of a world lord and reached the level of an ancient creature. It should be known that ancient creatures were almost destined to be born. There was no possibility of a breakthrough at a later stage. However, Xiao Chen had broken through. Looking at Hu Huang's shocked expression, Xiao Chen smiled slightly and said, "Why? Are you surprised?" Although he said that, his hands didn't stop moving at all. On the contrary, his attacks became more and more violent. For a moment, Hu Huang couldn't react in time. He thought that Xiao Chen's appearance was a stroke of luck. However, who would have thought that Xiao Chen's strength would be so strong? It was simply unbelievable. Hu Huang didn't dare to be careless. Facing Xiao Chen's attacks, Hu Huang could only focus on dealing with them. Qin Shuru and the others on the side heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Xiao Chen was fighting fiercely with Hu Huang and wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Xiao Chen's strength was obviously not inferior to Hu Huang's. In this way, Hu Huang naturally couldn't take down Xiao Chen. There was also no need to worry about Xiao Chen's safety. Qin Shuru and the others were relieved. Yin Peng looked at Xiao Chen, who suddenly appeared. In addition to feeling relieved, he also had mixed feelings. They were both world lords of the universe, but why was Xiao Chen so strong? Could this be the horror of the land of creation? he only went to the land of creation once and he already had such powerful combat power? Yin Peng also heard about the land of creation from Jun Wuya, Xiao Qing, and Xian Yuanling. He had never heard of it before, but he also knew that Xiao Chen and the others had gone to the land of creation before. At that time, Yin Peng didn't know Xiao Chen yet, so he naturally missed this opportunity. However, now it seemed that Xiao Chen only went to the land of creation once, and he was a little envious that he could have such powerful combat power. Even Hu Huang, an ancient creature, couldn't do anything to Xiao Chen at this time. The two could be said to be evenly matched. From the beginning of each other's probing skills to the current fierce battle, it could be said that Hu Huang had already gone all out. However, Xiao Chen still handled it with ease. When the fists collided, the space had already completely collapsed. The terrifying aftermath of the battle was also difficult for the people of Dapeng Palace to withstand. Even Qin Shuru and the other world lords had to put some distance between them to be careful not to be implicated by the aftermath of the battle between Xiao Chen and Hu Huang. Although the world lords and ancient creatures seemed to be only one level apart, this step could be said to be an insurmountable gap. It was a prohibition set by the laws of heaven and earth. Therefore, even Qin Shuru and the others seemed to be under a lot of pressure from the aftermath of the battle between Xiao Chen and Hu Huang. Naturally, they didn't want the aftermath of the battle between the two of them to implicate others, especially Qin Shuru and the others. Therefore, after the fist collided, Xiao Chen suddenly stretched out his palm and directly pinched Hu Huang's face. The corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. "I can't let go of my hands and feet here. Let's go somewhere else." Having said that, he directly pulled Hu Huang into the void without any explanation. Once there, Xiao Chen would no longer have to worry about the safety of Qin Shuru and the others. It could be said that he was forcibly pulled into the void by Xiao Chen. The whole process was absolutely humiliating for Hu Huang. His cheeks were tightly pinched by Xiao Chen. Before he could react, his whole body had already been dragged into the void. "You're courting death." For the proud and arrogant Hu Huang, Xiao Chen's actions were definitely courting death. With a roar, Hu Huang's power rose wildly. Previously, he was shocked by Xiao Chen's strength. However, now, Hu Huang only had one thought in his mind, and that was to kill this bastard in front of him. Ever since he was born, he had never suffered such a great loss. It should be known that even when he faced the ancestors, Hu Huang had never felt so humiliated. However, Xiao Chen made him feel that way now. However, in the face of Hu Huang's rage, Xiao Chen didn't care at all. After forcibly dragging Hu Huang into the void, Xiao Chen no longer had any worries and could attack directly without any worries. With a thought, the dustless sword appeared in his hand directly. After he broke through to the World Lord level, the dustless sword had also undergone obvious changes. At this time, when he held it in his hand, it didn't look like a sword at all. It was just a simple blood-red light strip. There was no hilt, and the sword blade couldn't be seen. It was simply a light strip. However, even though the dustless sword had become so simple now, Xiao Chen knew that its power was far from what it used to be. With the sword body, the dustless sword was equivalent to Xiao Chen himself. As Xiao Chen's strength increased, the dustless sword would obviously increase accordingly. Looking at the dustless sword in Xiao Chen's hand, Hu Huang instinctively felt a trace of danger. The stronger one's strength was, the sharper one's perception would be. There was no doubt about this. At this moment, Hu Huang truly felt the danger. If this had happened in the past, Hu Huang would have definitely snorted. What a joke! How could an ordinary creature make him feel threatened? It was simply a joke. However, after exchanging blows with Xiao Chen, Hu Huang understood that the person in front of him couldn't be judged by common sense. With the dustless sword in hand, this was the true display of Xiao Chen's strength. To Xiao Chen, there was a huge difference between having the dustless sword and not having it. This was because no matter how much Xiao Chen's strength increased, fundamentally, Xiao Chen was still a sword cultivator. Moreover, Xiao Chen had never given up on the sword Dao. It could even be said that Xiao Chen had already walked his own path in the sword Dao. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Xiao Chen's attainments in the sword Dao were unparalleled in the entire world. Xiao Chen slowly raised his right hand. The dustless sword in his hand emitted a faint red light. His eyes were calm and indifferent. He even looked at Hu Huang with a smile. Be careful. Don't be careless. Hearing this, Hu Huang was furious. What did this mean? Was he looking down on him? However, before Hu Huang could say anything, Xiao Chen casually slashed out with his sword. Instantly, a blood-red sword light streaked across the sky. Looking at the blood-red sword aura rushing straight at him, Hu Huang's words, which were already at the tip of his tongue, stopped abruptly. There was nothing he could do about it. Xiao Chen's sword was extremely dangerous. Hu Huang felt his eyelids twitching just looking at it. He did not dare to be careless in the slightest. He did not even have the time to bother arguing with Xiao Chen. He could only focus on dealing with Xiao Chen's sword. Please add it to your collection. Please recommend it. Chapter 2875. The difference in strength between Xiao Chen with and without a sword was absolutely incomparable. Xiao Chen's attack had been substantially enhanced after he took out the dustless sword. Even Hu Huang did not dare to be careless at this moment. The difference in strength between Xiao Chen with and without a sword was absolutely incomparable. Xiao Chen's attack had been substantially enhanced after he took out the dustless sword. Even Hu Huang did not dare to be careless at this moment. He only managed to block Xiao Chen's attack with all his might. However, this was only the beginning. Xiao Chen did not give Hu Huang much time to catch his breath after he blocked his attack. He continued to attack and continued to rain attacks on Hu Huang like a torrential downpour. After fighting with Hu Huang, Xiao Chen became more confident. With his current strength, he was indeed not weaker than these ancient creatures. Xiao Qing's means were really unpredictable. After this round of closed-door training, Xiao Chen indeed had the battle strength to be on par with the ancient creatures. Taking the initiative to attack, Hu Huang was furious. However, there was nothing he could do. He could only attack and fight fiercely with Xiao Chen. Even though Hu Huang was unwilling, he had to admit that Xiao Chen's strength was not weaker than his. Therefore, when facing Xiao Chen, Hu Huang could only choose to go all out. In the void, Xiao Chen and Hu Huang fought fiercely. Neither of them was willing to give way to the other. In the outside world, as Xiao Chen and Hu Huang disappeared into the void, Qin Shuru and the other women were worried. However, they knew that they could not help much in the face of Hu Huang. Moreover, the women were very confident in Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen had never let them down. This time, it was fortunate that Xiao Chen arrived in time. Otherwise, things would be very troublesome. After all, no one in the Great Rock Palace could stop Hu Huang. Let's clean up, Qin Shuru said to the people around him. When Hu Huang attacked just now, many experts in the Great Rock Palace were killed. There were still many corpses lying on the ground. Hearing this, Yin Peng immediately ordered the people in the Great Rock Palace to clean up. As for Hu Huang, he could only leave him to Xiao Chen. Is Xiao Chen alright? Yin Peng was still a little worried about this. After all, Hu Huang's strength was very strong, and everyone had seen it for themselves. Yin Peng was not sure whether Xiao Chen could defeat Hu Huang or not, and if Xiao Chen failed, everyone could imagine the consequences. In this regard, Qin Shuru and the other women said confidently, "Don't worry, our husband won't let us down." Hu Huang was very strong, but Xiao Chen was no longer Xiao Chen. Now, Xiao Chen's strength was far from what it used to be. Moreover, judging from the battle just now, Xiao Chen's strength was not weaker than Hu Huang's. In fact, he seemed to be slightly stronger. Otherwise, he would not have been able to drag Hu Huang into the void to fight. After hearing Qin Shuru and the other women's answers, although Yin Peng was still uncertain, he still nodded. In Yin Peng's opinion, it would not be easy for Hu Huang, an ancient creature, to defeat him. However, in this situation, he had no other choice but to believe in Xiao Chen. In this way, everyone in the outside world began to clean up the mess. In the void, the battle between Xiaochen and Hu Huang continued. Xiaochen went all out, and Hu Huang did not hold back. The two of them could be said to be evenly matched. For a time, no one could do anything to the other. However, judging from the situation, Xiaochen seemed to have a slight advantage. After all, Xiaochen was obviously stronger than Hu Huang in terms of pure attack power. Hu Huang did not have much of a chance of winning against Xiaochen. Therefore, Hu Huang could only choose to defend. Damn it! Hu Huang cursed in his heart. He had never been so aggrieved. Even when he fought with other ancient creatures, Hu Huang did not feel so aggrieved. However, he could not do anything when facing Xiaochen. In addition, Xiaochen was not an ancient creature, but now he had a battle power that was on par with him. This made Hu Huang extremely depressed. In the beginning, he did not understand how Xiaochen could break through to the Lord of the World. However, Hu Huang had guessed something now. The land of creation. Xiaochen and the others entered the land of creation. There was no doubt that the spirit of heaven and earth had taken action. It was little Qing who helped Xiaochen to break through to the Lord of the World. In the whole world, who else could have such an ability besides little Qing? Even the ancestors did not have the ability to help an ordinary creature break through to the level of an ancient creature. However, regardless of whether Xiaochen succeeded in breaking through because of little Qing's help, Hu Huang had to make a choice as soon as possible. Should he continue to fight with Xiaochen or leave? Hu Huang originally thought that it would be a very simple task. However, with the appearance of Xiaochen, it was obviously impossible for Hu Huang to take Qin Shuru and the others away. Unless Hu Huang could defeat Xiaochen. However, judging from the current situation, Hu Huang was not confident that he could defeat Xiaochen. The two of them were almost equal in strength. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Hu Huang to defeat Xiaochen. In this way, there was no objection to continuing the fight with Xiaochen. Moreover, if Xiaochen was not defeated, Hu Huang would not have the opportunity to attack Qin Shuru and the others. Therefore, Hu Huang had to make a choice as soon as possible. Should he continue to fight with Xiaochen or give up? On the other hand, Xiaochen's goal was very simple. He wanted to stop Hu Huang. Otherwise, he would attack Qin Shuru and the others. There was no need to think too much about it, nor was there a dilemma. Hu Huang could feel that Xiaochen's attacks were not weakening at all as time passed. On the contrary, they were becoming more and more ferocious. There was a sense of helplessness in Hu Huang's heart. The idea of taking down Xiaochen seemed to be unrealistic now. Since there was no point in continuing the fight, Hu Huang quickly made a decision in his heart. He immediately took the initiative to retreat. Seeing this, Xiaochen had no intention of pursuing him. Xiaochen knew that Hu Huang had made his choice. Since Hu Huang had chosen to leave, Xiaochen naturally would not stop him. After all, it would be very difficult for Xiaochen to kill Hu Huang. Of course, if Hu Huang had helpers, such as Lin Yun and the others, then it was indeed possible for them to keep Hu Huang here. Unfortunately, Lin Yun and the others were not by his side now. Therefore, even if Hu Huang wanted to leave, Xiaochen did not stubbornly force him to stay. Hu Huang glanced coldly at Xiaochen and chose to leave without saying a word. At his level, it was meaningless to talk tough. This time, Xiaochen's appearance had completely disrupted Hu Huang's plan. Hu Huang was also surprised by Xiaochen's strength. Therefore, it was useless to threaten him now. Chapter 2876. Hu Huang left without saying anything. Everything depended on one's strength. Since he couldn't do anything to Xiaochen, it was meaningless for Hu Huang to leave any harsh words. Hu Huang left without saying anything. Everything depended on one's strength. Since he couldn't do anything to Xiaochen, it was meaningless for Hu Huang to leave any harsh words. On the other side, Xiaochen watched Hu Huang leave. He didn't stop him because there was nothing he could do if Hu Huang wanted to leave. However, with Hu Huang's departure, the people from the origin world would come soon. At that time, the primogenitors would probably take action personally. It seems like I have to leave this place as soon as possible. Xiaochen sighed and left. when he returned to the Great Rock Palace, he found that it had been cleaned up. The corpses of those who had been killed by Hu Huang had also been moved away. Of course, these things didn't matter to Xiaochen. Seeing Xiaochen appear, Qin Shiru and the other girls took the initiative to welcome him. They were relieved. Xiaochen smiled and nodded at the girls. Then, he came to Xiaoqing and Junhuia. Father, Master. Although Xiaochen's strength had surpassed Junhuia, Xiaochen still respected Junhuia very much. Junhuia smiled and nodded. He didn't expect that Xiaochen could reach this step and even surpass his master. It's good that you're fine. Xiaoqing patted Xiaochen's shoulder gently. Xiaoqing hadn't seen Xiaochen for many years. Naturally, he was happy to see him this time. They exchanged pleasantries. Then, Xian Yuanling introduced Yin Peng to Xiaochen. Yin Peng was very enthusiastic when facing Xiaochen. Not only because of Xiaochen's strength, but also because Yin Peng wanted to join Xiaochen's alliance. Therefore, when he saw Xiaochen for the first time, Yin Peng showed great kindness. Xiaochen smiled and nodded. In the end, Xiaochen said, "Brother Yin, I don't think this place is safe." "Brother Yin Peng, I don't think it's safe here. Make some preparations and lead some people from the Great Rock Palace back to the origin world with me. As for the others, have them leave the nightmare world and find a place to hide." Xiaochen planned to lead Qin Shiru and the others back to the origin world. If Yin Peng and the others stayed in the nightmare world, they would be destroyed. So, Xiaochen suggested that Yin Peng and the others. However, with so many people in Great Rock Palace, it was obviously impossible for all of them to head to the place of creation. They could only send a small number of people, while the others, like the people from the Sacred Palace, found a place to hide first. This was the best plan for now. Yin Peng only thought about it for a moment before agreeing. He knew that although Xiaochen had forced Hu Huang to retreat, news of this would soon reach the ears of the primogenitors. When that time came, the primogenitors would not remain indifferent and might personally come to the nightmare world. Moreover, it would be very difficult for Xiaochen to fight against the primogenitors by himself. Moreover, who knew how many primogenitors would come? If more than one primogenitor came, it would be very dangerous. Yin Peng nodded and agreed. Soon after, he left to deal with the matters of the Great Peng Hall. According to Xiaochen, it was best not to bring too many people to the place of creation. Yin Peng only needed to bring his family and the ancestor stage experts of the Great Peng Hall. As for the others, they could only find a place to hide for the time being. Xiaochen did not directly interfere with the matters of the Great Rock Palace and left Yin Peng to deal with them. Xiaochen was led by Qin Shiru and the others to meet Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Xiao Luan, and his mother, Bai Ruyue. When they saw Xiaochen, the three little fellows happily called out, "Dad." The three little fellows were very disappointed that they could not follow Xiaochen to the origin world. However, there was nothing they could do. With their strength, it was impossible for them to go to the origin world. Xiaochen smiled and nodded when he saw the three of them in the secret room. He then came to Bai Ruyue and called out softly, "Mother. It's good that you're fine." Bai Ruyue smiled and nodded in response. Bai Ruyue did not want Xiaochen to be too powerful. She only wanted Xiaochen to be safe and sound. However, she also knew that there were many things that she could not stop. For example, Bai Ruyue could not stop Xiaochen from going to the origin world. Now that Xiaochen appeared in front of her safe and sound, Bai Ruyue was completely relieved. The family gathered together and chatted while waiting for news from Yin Peng. Xiaochen gave Yin Peng a day at most. He had to deal with the matters of the Great Rock Palace within a day. Otherwise, the Ancestor Realm experts might arrive. As for Xiaochen, there was not much to worry about. Anyway, everyone would follow him to the origin world. They still did not come into contact with any danger, but when they met again, the family enjoyed a rare reunion. Yin Peng's side was also very fast. In less than a day, he had dealt with the matters of the Great Rock Palace. Spatial spirit boats and starships flew into the air, carrying the experts of the Great Rock Palace. They were all going to leave the Dark Awakened world and go to other places to hide. It was clear that they could not stay in the Dark Awakened world for long. Because of Xiao Chen's appearance, the primogenitors would definitely pay attention to the Dark Awakened world. If they continued to stay in the Dark Awakened world, they would be courting death. Now was not the time to fight with the Origin world. After all, Mu Ling Xian, Dongfang Yun, and the others were still in closed-door cultivation. After the experts of the Great Rock Palace left, Yin Peng brought his family and the Ancestor Realm experts of the Great Rock Palace to find Xiao Chen. There were not many people, less than 20. Seeing Yin Peng, Xiao Chen asked, "Have you dealt with everything? Then let's go. We'll wait for a while longer. When the time comes, we'll truly face the Origin world." After saying this, Xiao Chen contacted Little Green. With Little Green's permission, everyone entered the land of creation. Naturally, they did not need to go through the soul channel like Xiao Chen did. Little Green could directly open the entrance to the land of creation. After receiving Xiao Chen's message, Little Qing quickly opened the entrance to the land of creation. A door of light appeared in the Great Peng Palace, and this door of light was the passage to the land of creation. Everyone entered in a single file, and it didn't take long for the entire Great Peng Palace to become quiet. Right now, the land of creation was definitely the safest place. Even the primogenitors would find it difficult to attack the land of creation. As such, Xiao Chen could only truly be at ease if his family stayed in the land of creation. After everyone entered the passageway, the door of light disappeared, and Xiao Chen's group left the Dark Awakened world. Please add this to your collection, monthly votes, and recommendations. Swordmaster 8 Desolations. Chapter 2877. After leaving the Nightmare World, Yin Peng felt incredibly excited. Even though he was a world lord, he had only heard about the land of creation from Xian Yuanling and the others, let alone know about it. After hearing that this was the true land of creation and that the heaven and earth spirit was here, Yin Peng could not help but feel excited. The heaven and earth spirit was something that countless cultivators dreamed of seeing. Compared to Yin Peng, Xiao Chen and the others were quite calm. After all, they had all come from the land of creation and were not as curious or excited about it as they had been at the beginning. With Little Green's help, everyone naturally entered the land of creation without any hindrance at all. Elsewhere, as Xiao Chen and the others left the Nightmare World, the primogenitors within the Origin world heard about Xiao Chen's appearance and turned their gazes to the Nightmare World. Xiao Chen broke through to World Lord? Looks like the heaven and earth spirit helped. Shouldn't we have guessed this long ago? Last time, if it wasn't for the heaven and earth spirit, those little fellows would have died long ago. The ancestors were not surprised that Xiao Chen had broken through to the level of a world lord and reached the level of an ancient creature. After all, they had already known of Xiao Qing's existence when they fought last time. Moreover, Xiao Qing had helped Xiao Chen and the others. With Xiao Chen's help, it was not impossible for Xiao Chen to break through the realm of a world lord and reach the realm of an ancient creature. What I'm concerned about is how many of Xiao Chen and the others have broken through to world lord. After all, even with the help of the heaven and earth spirit, it's impossible to have a 100% success rate. Xiao Chen was not the only one who had entered the land of creation. Lin Yun, Mu Ling Xian, and the others had also entered. Now, only Xiao Chen had appeared, so did that mean that the others had broken through to world lord like Xiao Chen? Even though the primogenitors did not know much about Xiao Chen and the others' breakthroughs, they knew that even with the help of the heaven and earth spirit, it was impossible to have a 100% success rate. And among them, how many people would succeed? Half, or more, or even less. The primogenitors gathered together and discussed. Xiao Chen's appearance and his breakthrough had caught their attention. After all, the current Xiao Chen could not be compared to before, and he was no longer in existence that the primogenitors could casually crush. Moreover, it was because of their arrogance and carelessness that they had given Xiao Chen a chance to grow, which allowed Xiao Chen to reach his current state. If they had been able to kill Xiao Chen, this would not have happened. Based on the previous lesson, the primogenitors were very serious this time. However, it was useless for them to discuss it here because they had no way of entering the place of creation for the time being. Heaven and earth, heaven and earth, earth, heaven and earth, and the primogenitors. Against heaven and earth's primogenitors, the world's primogenitor, and the world. Moreover, most of the origin world's power was used to construct the new world, so it was not the time to attack the heaven and earth spirit. Since they could not attack the place of creation for the time being, they could only choose to endure. They could not just ignore Shao Chen's matter either. Therefore, after some discussion, the ancestors decided to go and see for themselves. A primogenitor from the Righteous Path Alliance and a primogenitor from the Dark Age personally headed to the Nightmare Awakened world. Just as Shao Chen had guessed, after hearing about him, the primogenitors did indeed personally take action. Moreover, it was not just one primogenitor but two primogenitors. If Shao Chen had remained in the Nightmare Awakened world, he would have been killed. After all, Shao Chen would not have been able to deal with two primogenitors. However, it was evident that the primogenitors had made a wasted trip because by the time they had left, Shao Chen's group had already left the Nightmare Awakened world and returned to the heaven and earth spirit. Shao Chen did not know what the primogenitors were doing, and even if he did, he would not have cared. As long as he returned to the heaven and earth spirit, Shao Chen's group would be safe. It did not take long for Shao Chen's group to arrive at the heaven and earth spirit world. They appeared in the space where little Qing lived. As everyone walked out of the door of light, Gong Nantian and the others went up to welcome them. Sweeping his gaze across the surroundings, Yin Peng was extremely curious about everything in this place of creation. However, after sizing it up, Yin Peng discovered that this place didn't seem to be as special as he had imagined. Other than the rich spirit qi, there wasn't anything else that gave him a breathtaking feeling. This is where the heaven and earth spirit lives, not the true heaven and earth spirit world, Xian Yuanling said with a smile, guessing what Yin Peng was thinking. The place where little Qing lived was indeed very ordinary. Of course, this was also related to little Qing's own personality. She wasn't deliberately mystifying or anything. However, it would be a big mistake to judge the place of creation just based on this. Not to mention other things, just the creatures in the place of creation were already shocking enough. One had to know that such creatures didn't exist in the outside world. Shao Chen ignored Yin Peng. Even though Yin Peng and Shao Chen were both world lords of their respective universes, Yin Peng did not have the qualifications to be on the same level as Shao Chen. Yin Peng's current status was most likely on par with Xian Yuanling's. After all, Shao Chen was now an ancient creature, and even Qin Shuru, Xian Yuanling, and the others had the cultivation of world lords. Therefore, there was actually a gap between Yin Peng and Shao Chen. After exchanging greetings with everyone, Shao Chen took the initiative to approach little Qing. Seeing Shao Chen, little Qing nodded with a smile. All along, little Qing had been very close to Shao Chen. Even Lin Yun could not compare to their closeness. It could be said that little Qing seemed to really treat Shao Chen as a friend. In front of little Qing, Shao Chen was also very casual and asked with a smile. "How is the current situation?" "Not bad. Mu Lingxian and Dongfang Yun are about to come out of their seclusion. The others are doing well." Up until now, only Shao Chen and Lin Yun had successfully come out of their seclusion. However, the others did not have much of a problem, especially Mu Lingxian and Dongfang Yun. They were only one step away from completing their seclusion. It was estimated that they would finish their seclusion in the next few days. In response, Shao Chen nodded with a smile. Once everyone came out of their seclusion, they would be able to confront the origin world. At that time, Shao Chen and the others would have the confidence to confront the origin world. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2878. After returning safely to the origin world, Shao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. At least it was safe here. Shao Chen didn't have to worry about his family encountering any danger. Next, they settled down and waited for Mu Lingxian, Dongfang Yun, and the others to come out of seclusion. After asking about Lin Yun, Shao Chen learned that Lin Yun hadn't returned yet. He didn't ask too much. After all, with Lin Yun's strength, she shouldn't encounter any danger unless she was surrounded by the primogenitors. Even so, Lin Yun would definitely send a message to ask for help. In that case, shouldn't we prepare early and summon the other ancient creatures to the origin world? Xiaochen suggested as he looked at little Qing. Since Mu Lingxian, Dongfang Yun, and the others were about to come out of seclusion, it was time to make preparations. For example, the beast slaves, Shi Song, Jupiter, and other ancient creatures, it was obviously a good choice to summon them to the place of creation as soon as possible. The creation of the new world was in full swing. In fact, Xiaochen and the others didn't have much time. The earlier they prepared, the earlier they could stop the primogenitors' actions. Little Qing nodded and said, "I've been planning this for a long time. Aren't we waiting for you to come back?" "Waiting for me?" "Yes, I want you to inform the beast slaves. After all, I can't leave." At this time, little Qing definitely couldn't leave the origin world. He had to pay close attention to everyone's seclusion. Therefore, little Qing didn't feel at ease letting others go. After all, the outside world was chaotic. Even if they had the cultivation of a world lord, they couldn't guarantee their safety. Only Xiaochen had the ability to protect himself now. Even if he went to the outside world, he could easily deal with the experts of the origin world. As long as he didn't encounter the primogenitors, Xiaochen wasn't afraid at all. "Alright, I just gave a suggestion. I didn't expect to get myself a mission." Xiaochen smiled bitterly and nodded. Originally, he planned to accompany his family for a period of time, but now it seemed that it was impossible. However, there was nothing to complain about. After all, it was a special period. Moreover, now was not the time to enjoy the happiness of family. The situation was still very dangerous. He could not relax. Seeing Xiaochen nod, little Qing smiled and told Xiaochen to go as soon as possible. As for where the wood spirits were, Xiaochen naturally knew and could contact them. When Xiaochen arrived, little Qing would open the entrance to the land of creation and bring everyone back. It wasn't a difficult task, but after Xiaochen explained the matter to Qin Shuru and the others, the girls complained with some dissatisfaction. "Why are you leaving again? We just came back." The girls naturally hoped that Xiaochen could spend more time with them. Moreover, they had just returned from the nightmare world and thought that they could stay with Xiaochen for a few more days. Who would have thought that Xiaochen would have to leave again as soon as they arrived at the land of creation? In response, Xiaochen said helplessly, "I don't have a choice. Now is not the time to relax. Some things are better prepared." Xiaochen also wanted to spend more time with his family, but he had no choice. Now was not the time to relax. Although the girls were dissatisfied, they were sensible and didn't stop him. "You little fellows stay here. Remember to listen to your mother and don't run around," Xiaochen said as he rubbed Xiao Yao and the other two little fellows' heads. In truth, Xiaochen was not worried about the safety of everyone in the creation site, nor did he have anything to worry about. After saying goodbye to his parents, Xiaochen left the creation site right away. After Xiaochen left, the others stayed here. Qin Shuru and the others were very natural, but Yin Peng was a little nervous, especially when he was facing little Qing. Yin Peng was very uneasy. There was nothing he could do about it. After all, he was facing a world spirit. Not everyone could be like Xiaochen and act so casually in front of little Qing. On the other hand, little Qing was quite indifferent towards Yin Peng. Even though Yin Peng was on the same side, little Qing didn't care about him at all, let alone help him increase his strength. She had never thought about helping Yin Peng increase his strength. Firstly, there wasn't enough time, and secondly, she didn't have any more treasures. Increasing the strength of a world lord to the level of an ancient creature wasn't something that could be done with just a few words. It required the support of countless natural treasures, and the amount of resources consumed was astronomical. To put it bluntly, even if the entire universe's financial resources were gathered, it probably wouldn't be enough for one person to break through. Therefore, little Qing naturally wouldn't mention this matter. After leaving the land of creation, Xiao Chen directly contacted the beast slave. After receiving Xiao Chen's message, the space origin opened the entrance. A spatial black hole instantly appeared in front of Xiao Chen, leading directly to the space origin. Without hesitation, he strode into the spatial black hole. Soon, Xiao Chen saw the beast slave and the others. At this time, apart from the beast slave, Wood Spirit, and Sure Song, Xiao Chen also saw 4 other ancient creatures. Needless to say, these 4 must be the ancient creatures that the beast slave and the others had roped in during this period of time. They had gathered here to deal with the origin world together. He smiled and nodded to everyone, but the beast slave said with some dissatisfaction, "Xiao Chen, you guys are too slow. I thought you guys had died in the land of creation." Xiao Chen and the others had indeed been in the land of creation for several years. During this period of time, the beast slave and the others had been waiting here. They had almost never left, let alone fought with the origin world. Hearing the beast slave's words, before Xiao Chen could speak, Wood Spirit scolded with a smile, "Although it's been a little long, at least the result is good. It seems that brother Xiao Chen has gained a lot." From the moment he saw Xiao Chen, Wood Spirit could sense Xiao Chen's current cultivation. He realized that he couldn't see through Xiao Chen's current cultivation. Judging from this point, it was obvious that Xiao Chen had successfully broken through the World Lord level and stepped into the ancient creatures level. This was something to be happy about. In response, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. However, I didn't come here for this matter. The World Spirit has invited you to the land of creation. It's about time to take action." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the others, including the beast slave, were stunned. Then, they readily nodded and agreed. Little Qing's invitation could even be said to be in order. The beast slave and the others had no reason to refuse. Moreover, this was indeed good news for them. Please collect, vote, recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 2879. Go to the land of creation. Beast slave and the others didn't even need to think before they agreed. They had been waiting patiently for a long time. Now, it was finally time for them to fight back and start a real war with the origin world. Go to the land of creation. Beast slave and the others didn't even need to think before they agreed. They had been waiting patiently for a long time. Now, it was finally time for them to fight back and start a real war with the origin world. Beast slave stretched his body comfortably and said with a smile, "Finally, we're going to take action. If we keep waiting like this, I'm going to go crazy." For a long time, they could only watch those old fellows from the origin world speed up the creation of the new world while they couldn't take action. Beast slave couldn't wait any longer. Now that Little Qing had summoned him, he was naturally excited. The other ancient creatures also nodded with a smile, including the 4 ancient creatures that Xiao Chen didn't know. They all nodded and smiled at Xiao Chen kindly. After his strength had increased, Xiao Chen didn't feel any pressure when interacting with these ancient creatures because they were all on the same level. Xiao Chen naturally didn't feel any pressure. As for the beast slave and the others, after knowing that Xiao Chen's strength had increased, they naturally treated him on the same level as them and would not underestimate him in the slightest. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chen contacted Little Qing and asked him to open the entrance to the land of creation. Soon, a light door appeared in front of them. They entered the light door one after another. In the end, Xiao Chen glanced at the space origin that hadn't done anything. Facing Xiao Chen's gaze, the space origin said helplessly, "I won't get involved in this. After all, my identity is a little different from yours." The space origin didn't want to get involved in the war between the origin world and the land of creation. After all, he wasn't an ancient creature and he didn't need to take sides. Moreover, no matter who won or lost in the end, it wouldn't affect him. He couldn't be killed. Without the space origin, how chaotic would this world be? Previously, the space origin had already made an exception by helping Xiao Chen and the others enter the land of creation. Xiao Chen nodded with a smile and didn't say anything. Although it would be best if the origin of space was willing to help, it was understandable that the origin of space was unwilling to do so. Xiaochen did not intend to force the origin of space to do so. He could guess a thing or two about what the origin of space was thinking, and he did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. Just like that, apart from the space origin, everyone else had already stepped into the door of light and headed to the land of creation, leaving this place. After safely returning to the place of creation and seeing little Qing, the beast slaves and the others all respectfully bowed. When facing little Qing, it was clear that even the ancient creatures like the beast slaves were respectful and reverent. Looks like the other three fellows have joined the origin world. Little Qing spoke indifferently as she gazed at the 7 beast slaves before her. There were a total of 10 ancient living beings in this world, and little Qing was naturally aware of that. But now, only 7 beast slaves had appeared before her. That meant that the other 3 had definitely sided with the origin world, just like Huang. Song smiled bitterly and said, "We tried our best. After all, everyone has their own ambitions. There's nothing we can do. It's okay. It's their own choice." "I don't care," Xiaoqing said with a smile. It wasn't surprising that 3 ancient creatures had joined the origin world. The primogenitors had been in the outside world for so many years. It wasn't strange for them to rope in a few ancient creatures. They let everyone rest and wait for Mu Lingxian and the others to come out of seclusion. Then, they would open the land of creation and fight the origin world to the death. In the next few days, Xiaochen could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He spent all his time with Qin Shuru and the other girls, as well as the little ones. With their father's company, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and Xiao Luan were naturally very happy. It was a rare moment of leisure. Under such circumstances, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Mu Lingxian and Dongfangyan finally moved. At the place where they were in seclusion, their physical bodies had recovered. They opened their eyes at the same time. Both of them had successfully completed their seclusion, breaking through the realm of world lords and reaching the realm of ancient creatures. Xiaochen and the others were overjoyed when they came out of seclusion. Seeing Xiaoqing bring the 2 back, Xiaochen took the initiative to greet them with a smile. "Congratulations. I lost to you again," Mu Lingxian said helplessly. Xiaochen's appearance meant that he had come out of seclusion earlier than him. This was a big blow to Mu Lingxian. One should know that when he first met Xiaochen, Xiaochen wasn't a world lord yet. Xiaochen smiled wryly. Was it really that important to come out one after the other? However, he did not make a fuss about it. Instead, he teased with a smile, "There's not much difference between coming out one after the other. Forget it. I'm used to it anyway. Since you're here, where's Lin Yun? He must have come out of seclusion." "Yes, but he's not here for the time being." Lin Yun and Xiaochen were 2 freaks in Mu Lingxian's eyes. In the past, Mu Lingxian wanted to compete with them, but later, he slowly realized that no matter what he did, he seemed to be a step behind them. Mu Lingxian had gotten used to it after being shocked so many times. Anyway, these 2 guys could not be explained with common sense. Just like this time, Xiaochen and Lin Yun were the first to succeed in their seclusion. In Mu Lingxian's view, this was already a very normal thing. If they were not the first to come out of seclusion, Mu Lingxian would find it strange. After exchanging a few words with Mu Lingxian, Xiaochen turned his head to look at Dongfangyan. The 2 looked at each other and the atmosphere became a little strange. However, Xiaochen still braced himself and said, "Congratulations." "Thank you." Hearing this, Dongfangyan lowered her head and replied softly. The feeling between Dongfangyan and Xiaochen was unclear. Even Xiaochen didn't know what to say. He knew what Dongfangyan was thinking, but to be honest, Xiaochen didn't know what to do. Moreover, Dongfangyan wasn't like Qin Shuru and the other girls. Xiaochen didn't have such thoughts in his heart. However, no matter what the relationship between Xiaochen and Dongfangyan was, it was indeed a happy event for everyone that she and Mu Lingxian came out of seclusion. That night, a group of people gathered together to drink and celebrate. Soon, the war with the origin world would start. No one knew what the situation would be like at that time. Moreover, no one knew how many of them would survive. Therefore, this was probably the last happy moment for them. Once the war started, everyone had the risk of dying. After all, they were facing the origin world this time. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2880. Dongfang Yun and Mu Lingxian had come out of seclusion, which made everyone happy. Including Lin Yun and Xiao Chen, 4 of them had successfully come out of seclusion. They had completed the breakthrough in life rating and reached the ancient era creature realm. Dongfang Yun and Mu Lingxian had come out of seclusion, which made everyone happy. Including Lin Yun and Xiao Chen, 4 of them had successfully come out of seclusion. They had completed the breakthrough in life rating and reached the ancient era creature realm. Now, it was up to Mo He, Ancestor He and the others. With their current strength and Little Qing's help, they indeed had the ability to fight against the origin world. This was what made everyone happy. After a few days, Lin Yun had also successfully returned to the land of creation. She didn't encounter any danger and everything went smoothly. In the end, Mo He and Ancestor He also came out of seclusion. Although some people had failed and died during this seclusion, the final result was still within expectations. At least, Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Mo He, Dongfang Yun and Mu Lingxian had successfully broken through. As everyone came out of seclusion one after another, Little Qing was finally ready to open the land of creation and fight against the origin world. Once the land of creation was opened, it meant the beginning of the war. At that time, the origin world would be able to enter the land of creation directly. Of course, the creatures in the land of creation would also be able to leave the land of creation and go to the origin world. Without the land of creation as a barrier, the two sides would naturally be able to face each other. Obviously, a war was unavoidable. Are you ready? After a rare few days of rest, Little Qing and Xiao Chen sat side by side. Now that the successful people had come out of seclusion, it was time to open the land of creation. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded slightly and said, "Anytime." Xiao Chen was naturally prepared. Not only him, but Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others were also prepared. Everyone had come to the land of creation to obtain power. Now that they had obtained enough power to contend with the primogenitors, there was no reason for them to run away. The situation in the outside world was not looking good. More and more universes were being taken over by the alphas. Many warriors had their emotions and desires forcibly taken away. They had become what the alphas called the new warriors. If nothing was done to stop this, the alphas were going to transform the universe into a new world. Since everyone was ready, it was time to open the Genesis land and fight the origin world head-on. Qing smiled faintly when she heard Xiao Chen's words. "Go and rest. I'll open the origin world tomorrow. I'm afraid you won't have much time to rest by then." Nodding, Xiao Chen got up and left. This was the last bit of peace. The night passed quickly. The next day, Xiao Chen and the others left Qing's residence. Of course, Xiao Qing, Bai Ruyue, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Lin Feng, Lin Shui, Dongfang Lin, and the other juniors did not come with them. A battle of this level was not something these juniors could participate in. Staying at Qing's residence was obviously the safest place for them. Therefore, Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others all left these little guys here without prior agreement. After returning to the land of creation, Qing was ready to open the exit of the land of creation. At the same time, the old tree of the Wood Spirit clan and some other native creatures of the land of creation rushed over after receiving the news. These creatures were not weak. Basically, they had surpassed the level of world lords. They were existences between world lords and ancient creatures, and they had all existed for many years. Seeing the old tree again, Xiao Chen nodded with a smile. The old tree also smiled and said, "Not bad. Your strength has surpassed mine now. If you want to, you should be able to too." "Ha, I have long given up on this idea. After all, it has been so many years. I am used to it. The old tree had existed for so many years. Naturally, it had a chance to become an ancient creature. Moreover, if Qing was willing, it would be much easier for the old tree to become an ancient creature than Xiao Chen and the others. But for the old tree, it actually did not care about these things. So what if it was an ancient creature? It was not very attractive to the old tree. The two of them chatted for a while. Of course, the patriarchs of the Stone Spirit Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan were also there. Xiao Chen also greeted them. When everyone arrived, Qing said with a serious expression, "The land of creation is about to open. Everyone, success or failure depends on this." Finally, they were going to face the primogenitors. The result of this battle would directly affect the future of this world. If they lost, there would be no ancient creatures in this world in the future. The primogenitors would become the undisputed rulers of this world. At that time, no one would be able to stop them. Everyone withdrew their smiles when they heard little Qing's words. They nodded with serious expressions. Everyone knew the consequences of failure, and they knew what they would have to face next. The land of creation was not weak, but they could not underestimate the origin world. The primogenitors had operated for many years. No one knew how much power the origin world had hidden, including Qing. Therefore, it was hard to say who would win this battle. No one could guarantee that they would win. Little Qing nodded with a serious expression. She glanced at everyone present. Soon, an aura soared from her body. At the same time, the space above the origin world started to twist like a whirlpool. At the same time, cracks appeared in the sky like a mirror. Qing was removing the restrictions on the land of creation. Once the restrictions were removed, the land of creation would be connected to the outside world. At the same time, with the appearance of the entrance, anyone would be able to enter the land of creation without any obstruction. Of course, the people inside the land of creation would be able to go to the outside world without any obstruction. In the land of creation, the sky was filled with cracks. In the outside world, the space in the endless starry sky was also distorted as if something was about to appear. With the passage of time, a vast and majestic continent seemed to slowly fly out of the void in the originally empty starry sky. A corner of it first appeared, and then it gradually appeared in the starry sky where there were few people. This mysterious continent was naturally within the land of creation. After the restrictions were removed, the land of creation was directly connected to the outside world. Now that it had appeared, it meant that the land of creation had truly appeared. Bit by bit, it connected with the outside world. Finally, the entire creation ground appeared in the starry sky out of thin air. At the same time, such a huge commotion naturally attracted many warriors in the surroundings. These warriors were all new warriors who had been turned into warriors by the primogenitors. They had no emotions and were only walking corpses who knew how to obey orders. In an instant, many people rushed over, wanting to see what was going on here. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2881. Little Qing removed the seal on the land of creation, and the land of creation that had been sealed for many years finally reconnected with the outside world at this moment. As the land of creation reappeared in the world, many cultivators from the origin world rushed over. Before long, countless auras came from afar. Lin Yan smiled when she sensed these auras. Their reaction is really fast. Now that there are new cultivators from the origin world everywhere, it's only natural. Xiao Chen smiled in response. The reaction of the cultivators from the origin world was really good. However, these cultivators didn't pose any threat to the land of creation at all. After all, they were still too weak. Up until now, even a world lord hadn't appeared. The strongest cultivator was only at the ancestor realm, and there was only one of them. These people probably didn't know about the land of creation. They only came to investigate because they sensed such a huge commotion. Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Little Qing, and the others didn't care about such an outcome. They were just small fries that could be dealt with. However, Xiao Chen still asked, Can these people whose emotions and desires have been taken away recover? These so-called new cultivators were people from various universes in the past. They weren't like this in the past. They only became like this after their emotions and desires were forcibly removed. What Xiaochen cared about was whether there was a way to restore them. After all, these people weren't enemies strictly speaking. If they could be restored, it would be a huge blow to the strength of the origin world. Unfortunately, little Qing shook her head helplessly when faced with Xiaochen's question. There's no way. Their emotions and desires were forcibly removed. It's already impossible to restore them. If these people's emotions and desires were still preserved, little Qing would have a way to restore them. However, with the characters of the primogenitors, since they had forcibly removed these people's emotions and desires, it was impossible for them to be preserved. They must have been destroyed by the primogenitors. In this regard, although Xiaochen was a little disappointed, he did not say anything more. He only nodded at Sangxing and the others. Seeing this, Sangxing and the others directly soared into the sky and flew towards the periphery of the land of creation. Xiaochen and the others naturally didn't need to deal with these small fries. Sangxing and the others were enough. At the same time, the native creatures of the land of creation like the Wood Spirit Clan, the Stone Spirit Clan, and the Fire Spirit Clan attacked one after another. Moreover, their faces were clearly filled with excitement. The Stone Spirit Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan were the most excited. These native creatures had never come into contact with the outside world, so they had always been very curious about the cultivators of the outside world. Now that they finally had a chance to fight with these cultivators of the outside world, it was obviously impossible for these native creatures to refuse. Countless figures soared into the sky from the land of creation to greet these cultivators from the origin world. For a time, fierce battles broke out all around the land of creation. Fierce battles could be seen everywhere. What the hell are these guys? A new cultivator from the origin world was fighting fiercely with a clansman from the Stone Spirit Clan. Both of them were Emperor Realm Masters. However, this new cultivator from the origin world frowned when he saw the Stone Spirit Clan that he had never seen before. How could a piece of broken stone give birth to sentience? Moreover, it was an Emperor Realm Master. Compared to the puzzlement of this new cultivator, the clansman from the Stone Spirit Clan curled his lips in dissatisfaction. These are the cultivators of the outside world? They aren't that strong. The clansman from the Stone Spirit Clan was a little disappointed by the strength of these cultivators from the outside world. Even though their cultivations were similar, there was still a big gap between their combat strengths. Especially in a contest of physical strength, the Stone Spirit Clan had an absolute advantage. It couldn't be helped as this was an innate ability. After all, the Stone Spirit Clan was born with extremely powerful physical strength, which was the foundation of their survival. After a fierce battle, the clansmen from the Stone Spirit Clan gradually gained the upper hand and started to completely suppress this new cultivator from the origin world. Such a scene could be seen everywhere. Just as Xiaochen and the others had expected, these new cultivators from the origin world were just cannon fodder. With their strength, it was impossible for them to cause any impact on the land of creation. Therefore, the situation was very clear soon after the battle broke out. The land of creation had taken control of the situation without any effort to deal with this motley crew of cannon fodder. However, this obviously wasn't something to be happy about because this wasn't the true strength of the origin world at all. Moreover, the loss of this group of cannon fodder wasn't even a scratch to the origin world. After a period of development, more than half of the universes had been conquered by the origin world, and the cultivators in these universes had all been transformed into new cultivators by the origin world. They had become the sharp blades in the hands of the origin world. Therefore, the origin world didn't care about the loss of these new cultivators at all. Right now, Xiaochen and the others were more concerned about the overall situation. The first thing they had to do was to stop the origin world's attack. Otherwise, they would attack the other universes that hadn't been conquered yet. After all, the strength of the origin world would increase with every new cultivator. This wasn't good news for Xiao Chen and the others. I think we should act separately and stabilize the situation first. At the very least, we can't let the origin world continue to expand like this, said Xiao Chen without paying attention to the battle around them because the outcome had been decided. Lin Yun and the others naturally didn't have any objections to Xiao Chen's words. Stopping the expansion of the origin world was indeed the most important thing at the moment. Moreover, as long as they protected the universes that hadn't been conquered by the origin world, they could join the Land of Creation's camp. This could be considered as helping them. Then it's settled. Let's contact the others first. They were hiding everywhere before, so they should know the specific situation now, said Lin Yun. Previously, Sacred Palace, Immortal Palace, Cloud Palace, and the others had followed Xiao Chen's orders to hide in various universes. Obviously, they knew the specific situation better. Xiao Chen and the others planned to contact these people and confirm which universes hadn't been conquered yet. Only then would it be easier to rescue them. Everyone nodded in agreement. Then, they used the voice transmission talisman to contact the members of their respective forces. Soon, messages were sent back. Through the messages, Xiao Chen and the others quickly sorted out the current situation in the outside world. They immediately came up with a plan to launch a rescue operation to stop the expansion of the origin world. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2882. After understanding the situation in the outside world, Xiao Chen and the others quickly responded. Currently, the origin world was attacking several universes at the same time. Looking at the overall situation, more than half of the universes had been conquered by the origin world. Naturally, the origin world had seized the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the warriors in the conquered universes and turned them into the origin world's forces. After understanding the situation in the outside world, Xiao Chen and the others quickly responded. Currently, the origin world was attacking several universes at the same time. Looking at the overall situation, more than half of the universes had been conquered by the origin world. Naturally, the origin world had seized the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the warriors in the conquered universes and turned them into the origin world's forces. Now, what Xiao Chen and the others needed to do was to stop the origin world's attack. At least, they couldn't let the origin world continue to expand and protect the universes that hadn't been conquered by the origin world. They couldn't let the origin world complete the creation of a new world so easily. Moreover, once the origin world succeeded in creating a new world, it wouldn't be good news for Xiao Chen and the others. At that time, the situation would be even worse. We need to protect the universes that haven't been conquered yet, Xiao Chen said without much hesitation. They had to protect them. There was no doubt about it. Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, Muling Xian, and the others didn't have any objections. They agreed with Xiao Chen's point of view. Then, after a discussion, they decided to act in the limelight. Currently, they knew that the origin world was attacking 4 universes. These 4 universes were the ones that needed reinforcements first. Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun would lead many experts to reinforce one of the universes. Lin Yun, Ancestor He, Muling Xian, Mo He, Beast Slave, and Shi Song would team up in pairs. As for the others, they would be in charge of providing support to deal with the origin world's reaction. With the power of the origin world attacking these universes, it shouldn't be too difficult for Xiao Chen and the others to reinforce them. What worried them the most was the reaction of the origin world, especially if the primogenitors would take action. Therefore, Little Qing, Mu Ling, and the others were in charge of providing support so that they could be the first to arrive when the primogenitors took action. After the discussion came to a conclusion, the surrounding battles quickly ended. The new warriors of the origin world couldn't resist for long before they were completely wiped out by Xiao Chen and the others. It was true that these small fries could not cause any trouble. After settling the battles around the place of creation, Xiao Chen and the others were ready to leave. Dongfang Yun, Xiao Chen, Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, Qin Shuru and the other girls, as well as Dongfang Yun's subordinates, left the Genesis ground together. At the same time, Lin Yun's group departed as well. Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun's destination was a world called the Nether Child Universe. There were people from the Sacred Palace hiding in this universe. According to the news they sent back, the Nether Child Universe was currently being attacked by the Origin World, and it didn't seem to be able to hold on for much longer. The Nether Child Universe was a universe dominated by evil cultivators, but at a time like this, the righteous and evil paths were no longer important to Xiao Chen and the others. If they saved the Nether Child Universe, even if they were evil cultivators, they would still be comrades in the face of the Origin World. Since they had already taken action, the Nether Child Universe clearly didn't agree with the Origin World's new world. Therefore, there was a possibility of them becoming comrades. Xiao Chen and the others hurried to the Nether Child Universe on the spatial spirit boat. As for Lin Yun and the others, they headed to other universes to provide assistance. On the way, Xiao Chen kept asking about the situation in the Nether Child Universe. The Sacred Palace experts in the Nether Child Universe also gave Xiao Chen a general overview of the situation there. While Xiao Chen was hurrying to the Nether Child Universe, the primogenitors in the Origin World naturally learned about the birth of the Land of Creation. In fact, the primogenitors already knew about it as soon as it happened. After all, they had been paying attention to every movement in the Land of Creation. They didn't dare to lower their guard in the slightest when it came to anything related to the Land of Creation. If there was anything in the world that the primogenitors feared, it would be the Land of Creation. Other than the Land of Creation, the primogenitors of the various universes didn't care about anything else. The primogenitors knew very well what the appearance of the Land of Creation meant. It meant that the true all-out war between the two sides was about to begin. No, it should be said that it had already begun. In the Origin World, the battle between the Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Era had long stopped. The primogenitors of both sides were definitely in a state of cooperation. Patriarch Mu said indifferently when they gathered together again. It's still not in time. The Land of Creation is still one step ahead. In the minds of the primogenitors, the best outcome would be for them to speed up and successfully create the new world before turning around to deal with the threat of the Land of Creation. However, the creation of the new world had yet to succeed. Although more than half of the universes had already been conquered, there were still some universes that hadn't been conquered. The sudden appearance of the Land of Creation at such a critical juncture meant that the Origin World's operations wouldn't be so easy. It would even be very difficult to continue the creation of the new world. After all, the Land of Creation was in the way. It was very difficult to do so. Before the new world was successfully created, they had to face the Land of Creation in advance. This wasn't the result that the primogenitors wanted to see. However, the situation had already developed to this point. Even if the primogenitors didn't want to, there was nothing they could do. As soon as Patriarch Mu's voice fell, a Dark Era primogenitor beside him said, "The previous plan was just a one-sided prediction. How could the Heaven and Earth Spirit allow us to do as we wish so easily? Therefore, this isn't too strange. Moreover, now that more than half of the universes have been conquered, the situation isn't too bad. The next most important thing is still the battle between us and the Land of Creation. The result will affect the final outcome. The battle between the Origin World and the Land of Creation, the battle between the primogenitors and Little Qing, was the most important thing. As for the universes that hadn't been conquered, frankly speaking, it wasn't that important anymore. As long as they could defeat the Land of Creation, the Origin World would have enough time to slowly create the new world. On the other hand, if the Origin World was defeated in the battle with the Land of Creation, then not to mention the creation of the new world, even everything they had done so far would be in vain. What this primogenitor said was obviously agreed by everyone. The Land of Creation was a threshold that the Origin World couldn't avoid no matter what. Both sides would have to fight, and the final result would determine the direction of the entire world. If they lost, they would have nothing. Everything they had done so far would be in vain. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2883. Qing Zhu and the others chimed in as soon as the primogenitor finished speaking. Yes, we can't escape the place of creation no matter what. Didn't we already think of this from the very beginning? After so many years, it's time to put an end to it. Then let the others come back. Those universes that haven't been conquered are meaningless now. No, I think we can continue because they will certainly go back to support us. That way, we will have a chance to destroy them one by one. Continue? Yes, not only do we have to continue, but we also have to send reinforcements to drag the people of the land of creation to death in the other universes so that they can't take care of each other. Originally, they thought they had to stop attacking the other universes for the time being. Now that the origin world was attacking the 4 universes at the same time, the land of creation was obviously going back to support them. At first, some ancestors suggested to give up attacking the 4 universes for the time being, but soon, someone else had a different opinion. If they continued to attack the 4 universes, the land of creation would certainly go back to support them. That way, the battle line would be stretched out, and the land of creation didn't have that many experts. They would have to act separately. This was actually an opportunity for the origin world to destroy Xiao Chen and the others one by one. Some people quickly agreed with this suggestion because even if they gave up on attacking these universes, it would be useless. When the time came, they would still have to fight to the death with the land of creation. In that case, it would be better to stir up the situation and perhaps find some good opportunities. This was like fishing in troubled waters. Soon, they agreed. Not only did they not stop attacking the 4 universes, but they also sent more people to trap Xiao Chen and the others in those universes. Then it's decided. Send more people to drag them out. The ancestors reached a consensus. The 4 universes didn't stop attacking but increased their strength. Xiao Chen and the others naturally didn't know about this. Now, Xiao Chen and the others were rushing to the Nether Child universe. The reinforcements from the origin world had already set off. Under the ancestors' orders, many experts rushed to the 4 universes that were being attacked. After the discussion, Qiuzhu returned to his residence and sat with Hu Huang. Looking at Qiuzhu's serious expression, Hu Huang smiled and said, "What's wrong? Are you still hesitating?" Hu Huang was obviously teasing him, and there was a faint smile in his tone. Qiuzhu rolled his eyes at him and said, "What do you think?" Qiuzhu might have been hesitant before, but now, in the face of the land of creation, Qiuzhu no longer had the slightest hesitation. There was no confusion in his heart. Previously, Qiuzhu had let Xiao Chen and the others go because he didn't approve of the new world. However, in Qiuzhu's mind, the land of creation had nothing to do with the new world anymore. Because this was a battle for survival. If they lost to the land of creation, then not to mention a new world, the origin world would probably cease to exist. Moreover, the fate of these primogenitors would probably not be good. As one of the progenitors, Qiuzhu didn't hesitate at all. This was a battle of life and death. There was no room for hesitation or confusion. Moreover, Qiuzhu had already done what he could. The next battle was not a time for him to be soft-hearted. Seeing Qiuzhu's expression, Hu Huang smiled and said, "Do you need me to go there personally? I'm very interested in Xiao Chen." Hu Huang knew that the primogenitors had intensified their attacks on the 4 great cosmoses in order to drag out Xiao Chen and the others. Qiuzhu shook his head and said, "It's not the right time yet. It's not time yet. Even if you go alone, what can you do? Can you take down Xiao Chen?" Speaking of Xiao Chen, Qiuzhu sighed. Not long ago, Xiao Chen had only been a world lord. He wasn't qualified for Qiuzhu to take him seriously. However, he had transformed into an ancient life form comparable to Huang. Even Qiuzhu wouldn't dare say that he could kill Xiao Chen in a one-on-one situation, let alone Huang. He could have the upper hand, but it was difficult to kill him. This was the feeling that Xiao Chen gave Qiuzhu. Therefore, Qiuzhu didn't agree to Huang's request to go to the Nether Child Cosmos. Even if Huang went alone, he wouldn't be a threat to Xiao Chen. Huang alone wouldn't be able to do anything to Xiao Chen. Moreover, it was still unclear how many people Xiao Chen had with him, and whether there were other ancient creatures around him. If Wu Huang were to go there alone, he would probably go for wool and come home shorn. At that time, not only would he not be able to do anything to Xiao Chen, but he would also probably get himself involved in the dangerous forbidden area. It had to be said that Qiu Zu's decision was very correct because Xiao Chen was not alone at this time. He had Dongfang Yun by his side and 2 world lords. If Wu Huang really came, not only would he not be able to gain any advantage, he might even be killed directly. Hearing Qiu Zu's words, Wu Huang said helplessly, "It seems that you don't have any confidence in me." "It's not a matter of confidence. We still don't know how many ancient life forms are in the creation land. It's meaningless to act rashly." Little Qing helped Xiao Chen break through the World Lord level and reach the level of ancient life forms. Qiu Zu and the others knew this. However, other than Xiao Chen, what about the other World Lords who entered the creation land? For example, Lin Yun, Mu Ling Xian, Mo He, and the others must have received Little Qing's help. Did they successfully break through the World Lord level and reach the level of ancient life forms? There was still too little information, especially regarding Xiao Chen and the others. If Lin Yun and the others also broke through the World Lord level, then they had to be more careful in the origin world. At the same time, it wasn't impossible. After all, it was Little Qing, a world spirit, who was stronger than primogenitors like them. Qiu Zu's idea was very simple. He had to figure out the situation first before making a specific decision. On the other side, Wu Huang nodded helplessly. "All right, but when the time comes, you have to leave Xiao Chen to me." Wu Huang was still brooding over what happened last time. As an ancient life form, it was impossible for Wu Huang to not have any pride. It was even harder for Wu Huang to let go of being defeated by an ordinary life form like Xiao Chen. Therefore, as long as there was a chance, Wu Huang would definitely get back at him. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2884. Wu Huang was still holding a grudge against Xiao Chen. After all, he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Xiao Chen. With Wu Huang's personality, it was obvious that he could not take it lying down. Wu Huang was still holding a grudge against Xiao Chen. After all, he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Xiao Chen. With Wu Huang's personality, it was obvious that he could not take it lying down. Hearing this, Qiu Zu nodded with a smile. "Okay, Xiao Chen will definitely be yours." Qiu Zu did not have much doubt about Wu Huang's strength. In terms of strength, Wu Huang was not weaker than Xiao Chen. If the two of them went all out, the result would be hard to predict. However, it was not the time for Wu Huang to make a move yet. Currently, the reinforcements of the 4 universes had been sent. Of course, they did not send any real experts. The primogenitor's intention was clear. They wanted to stall Xiao Chen and the others. Therefore, the reinforcements sent this time were basically just some small fry. They could not cause too much trouble for Xiao Chen and the others. The primogenitor's purpose was simple. They did not want to defeat Xiao Chen and the others. They just wanted to stall them. Therefore, the reinforcements were more of a distraction. The primogenitors even gave a clear order. Unless it was a last resort, they did not need to fight. They just needed to wander around the Nether Child universe. They just needed to give Xiao Chen and the others some pressure and not let them leave. The primogenitor's idea was simple. On the other side, Xiao Chen and the others had arrived outside the Nether Child universe after hurrying along. Without hesitation, they entered the Nether Child universe through the space channel. When the space spirit ship came out of the space channel, Xiao Chen and the others immediately saw battles erupting everywhere. The Nether Child universe was indeed a relatively tough universe. It had resisted the attack of the Origin world until now, but the Origin world had not taken it down. Of course, it was also related to the forces the Origin world had invested. If the Origin world had attacked the Nether Child universe with full force, they wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long. After all, they weren't on the same level. There was no need for Xiao Chen to say anything. Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and Dongfang Yun's subordinates immediately took action. Xiaochen also saw some sacred palace powerhouses fighting alongside Nether Kiliakosm. These sacred palace experts had been hiding in the Nether Child universe, but they still chose to join forces with the Nether Child universe to resist the invasion of the origin world. With Xianyuan Ling and the other world masters joining the battle, the situation was quickly reversed. After all, there were so many world masters joining the battle all of a sudden. The origin world would not be able to deal with them at all. As for Xiaochen and Dongfang Yun, they were not interested in joining the battle at all because there was only one world master on the origin world side. It was not worth their time. Xianyuan Ling and Long Qing's target was the world master of the origin world. Under their joint attacks, the world master of the origin world quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. It could be said that the outcome was already decided because the people sent by the origin world to attack the Nether Child universe were not strong. They couldn't cause any trouble for Xiaochen and the others. As the situation was reversed, several sacred palace experts came before Xiaochen and called out with wide smiles on their faces. Sacred Master. The sacred palace experts were naturally overjoyed to see Xiaochen again. Ever since they had split up and hidden, they had been looking forward to the day Xiaochen would appear. And now, Xiaochen had really appeared before them. Xiaochen nodded with a smile when he heard their words. Thank you for your hard work. The sacred palace experts had split up to avoid the origin world's pursuit. Xiaochen knew that they must have suffered a lot. The sacred palace experts had even suffered a lot because of the origin world's pursuit. The people hiding in the universes that had already been conquered had their emotions and desires forcibly extracted and had become the origin world's lackeys. This was the price they had to pay. Fortunately, at least half of the sacred palace experts had survived. This was something that made Xiaochen quite happy. After exchanging a few words with the sacred palace experts, Xiaochen swept his gaze over the current situation. Although the battle had completely tilted towards his side and the origin world experts were completely suppressed, they were still bitterly holding on for a while. Victory was already a certainty, but Xiaochen didn't have so much time to waste. He didn't think too much and directly attacked. Dense sword chi formed around him. With Xiaochen's current strength, he had an overwhelming advantage against the origin world experts. Sword chi whizzed out and soon filled the entire space. The origin world experts in this space couldn't resist Xiaochen's sword chi attack at all. They were directly slain by the sword chi. Xiaochen's attack was undoubtedly one disaster after another for the origin world. Soon, the battle was completely over. Countless origin world experts were slain, and Xiaochen's strength had shocked everyone in the Nether Child universe. Xiaochen didn't even need to attack when facing so many origin world experts. He just used his sword chi to kill so many people. Even a world lord would find it difficult to achieve such strength. Moreover, there were Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, Qin Shuru, and the others around Xiaochen. All of them were world lords. Coupled with Dongfang Yun's subordinates, the sudden appearance of so many world lords was difficult for many Nether Child universe cultivators to accept. Many people had never seen so many world lords appearing at the same time. Soon, the world lord of the Nether Child universe, Yin Ming, took the initiative to come before Xiaochen and cupped his fists. Yin Ming greets Senior. Yin Ming had already sensed that Xiaochen's strength was above his, but he didn't know Xiaochen's identity, so he directly called him Senior. In response, Xiaochen said with a smile, "Brother Yin Ming, there's no need to be so polite. I'm Xiaochen. I've specially come to help the Nether Child universe." "You're Xiaochen?" Yin Ming was stunned when he heard the name Xiaochen. Then, he said excitedly, Xiaochen's current fame wasn't weak at all among the many universes because he was the first world lord who dared to stand up against the origin world. Moreover, the world lords of many universes knew that Xiaochen, Lin Yun, and Mu Lingxian had established an alliance. Therefore, many universes that fought against the origin world now wanted to join this alliance, including the Nether Child universe. Because of this, Yin Ming was so excited when he heard Xiao Chen's name. After all, Yin Ming had specially inquired about Xiao Chen's whereabouts before, but unfortunately, he didn't get any news. Now that he suddenly saw Xiao Chen and that Xiao Chen had specially come to rescue him, Yin Ming was greatly relieved. He also knew that the Nether Child Universe's power alone couldn't resist the attack of the Origin World. Chapter 2885. Originally, Yin Ming had already given up all hope. Although he had already decided that he wouldn't surrender to the Origin World, he had lost all hope after the series of battles. The strength of the Nether Child Universe was indeed no match for the Origin World. But who would have thought that Xiao Chen would appear at the critical moment? His eyes were filled with admiration when he looked at Xiao Chen. Especially Xiao Chen's current strength. Yin Ming clearly felt that Xiao Chen's strength had absolutely surpassed the World Lord realm. Although he didn't know how Xiao Chen broke through to the World Lord realm, it didn't stop him from admiring Xiao Chen. Feeling Yin Ming's incomparably hot gaze, Xiao Chen felt a little unnatural. It was no wonder. No one would feel comfortable being stared at by a man like this. Xiao Chen wasn't interested in men. Brother Yin Ming, why don't we find a place to talk? Now that the people of the Origin World had been slaughtered, even if a few of them were lucky enough to escape, they wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. The crisis of the Nether Child Universe had been temporarily averted. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yin Ming immediately nodded. Yes, Brother Xiao Chen is right. In order to deal with the attack of the Origin World, Yin Ming had already set up the front line at the exit of the spatial passageway. There was a magnificent palace not far away. Yin Ming was now enthusiastically inviting Xiao Chen into the palace. Along the way, Yin Ming was very polite and enthusiastic, but this kind of enthusiasm was more of a kind of admiration for Xiao Chen. Yin Ming knew a lot about Xiao Chen's story. Even in his heart, he had long regarded Xiao Chen as his goal. Brother Chen, come, sit here. This is the main seat. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for me to sit here. You should sit here. After all, this is your territory. Aya, you're welcome. Brother Chen, you're looking down on me. What's mine is yours. As long as Brother Chen thinks highly of me, I, Yin Ming, will listen to Brother Chen in the future. Yin Ming even gave the main seat to Xiao Chen. When Xiao Chen refused, Yin Ming looked unhappy. Xiao Chen felt helpless. This guy was a little strange. He didn't want to be the World Lord at all. In the face of Yin Ming's enthusiasm, Xiao Chen had no choice but to sit on the main seat. What Yin Ming did next made Xiao Chen feel even more helpless. As the World Lord of the Nether Child Universe, Yin Ming actually took the initiative to make tea for Xiao Chen. He personally placed the tea in front of Xiao Chen like a servant and then looked at Xiao Chen with burning eyes. He did not even blink his eyes. This guy was definitely a weirdo. Feeling a little scared by Yin Ming's gaze, Xiao Chen asked doubtfully. Brother Yin Ming, when did you become the World Lord of this Nether Child Universe? The feeling that Yin Ming gave Xiao Chen was that he wasn't the World Lord of a universe at all. He was more like a bootlicker. That's right, a bootlicker. Especially in front of him, that's why he asked curiously. Upon hearing this, Yin Ming's answer almost made Xiao Chen spit out the tea in his mouth. Yin Ming said calmly. Almost 2 years. Only 2 years as the World Lord? He looked at Yin Ming with a complicated gaze. So, this guy is still very young? But 2 years ago, didn't the Origin World begin to attack the various universes? How did Yin Ming become the World Lord at that time? Xiao Chen also asked the question in his heart. In response, Yin Ming scratched his head and replied with some embarrassment. Well, I've been in seclusion before, but the Origin Force doesn't seem to approve of me, so it's a little difficult for me to refine it. In fact, I entered the land of Origin by chance and have been cultivating there. 2 years ago, I don't know what happened, but the Origin Force seemed to have approved of me all of a sudden, so I became the World Lord of the Nether Child Universe. Is that even possible? Upon hearing Yin Ming's words, Xiaochen was completely stunned. Is that even possible? According to Yin Ming, he was not someone who had gained the recognition of the origin energy at all. As a matter of fact, even entering the land of origin energy was a coincidence. Yin Ming had remained in the land of origin energy to cultivate since he failed to gain the recognition of the origin energy. This also led to the fact that the Nether Child universe didn't have a world lord until 2 years ago. Perhaps because the origin force sensed the danger from the origin world, it also understood that the Nether Child universe needed a world lord to lead it. After looking around and finding no suitable person, it simply chose Yin Ming to make up the number. Thus, Yin Ming became the world lord of the Nether Child universe. Xiaochen had never heard of such a thing before. He looked at Yin Ming strangely and smiled helplessly. So that's how it is. You're lucky. And, not bad. What else could he say? Other than saying that he was lucky to become the world lord of a universe, Xiaochen really couldn't think of anything else to say. In this regard, Yin Ming laughed excitedly. Ha, Brother Chen, you flatter me. I didn't expect to be approved by the origin force. At that time, I was startled. The origin force rushed into my body by itself. Looking at Yin Ming's dancing appearance, Xiaochen felt sorry for the origin force of the Nether Child universe. He wondered under what circumstances the origin force chose Yin Ming, this idiot. However, he certainly couldn't say these words out loud. Then, Xiaochen asked tentatively. Then, don't tell me you haven't created your own force yet? Managing the Nether Child universe by yourself? Under normal circumstances, the world lords of various universes would create their own force to manage the universe. After all, a person's energy was limited, and it was impossible for them to do everything by themselves. However, looking at Yin Ming's performance, Xiaochen suddenly felt that this idiot didn't even have his own force. Sure enough, after hearing Xiaochen's question, Yin Ming replied without hesitation. Not yet, but Brother Chen, the various forces of the Nether Child universe have formed an alliance. I am now the alliance master, so this should be considered as my own force. Anyway, there are my subordinates to deal with all the big and small matters. I don't have to worry about it. In this regard, Xiaochen was completely speechless. This silly child. Do you really think it's a good thing to be the alliance master of the alliance formed by others? To put it bluntly, isn't it just supporting you while not letting you interfere in the affairs of the Nether Child universe? To put it simply, isn't your so-called alliance master just a vase, a mascot? Do you have any real power in your hands? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2886. Yin Ming was indeed a weirdo. Xiaochen was quite surprised that such a person could become the world lord of a universe. However, some things were just like that. If it were not for the current situation, it was estimated that Yin Ming would not be able to become the world lord in this lifetime. Yin Ming was indeed a weirdo. Xiaochen was quite surprised that such a person could become the world lord of a universe. However, some things were just like that. If it were not for the current situation, it was estimated that Yin Ming would not be able to become the world lord in this lifetime. However, one had to admit that this might be Yin Ming's luck. Weren't some people born at the right time? Perhaps Yin Ming was a person like this. Because he lived in such a situation, Yin Ming had the opportunity to become the world lord. However, Xiaochen really doubted that Yin Ming could become the world lord of the Nether Child universe with his ability. Looking at the current situation of the Nether Child universe, to put it bluntly, even if Yin Ming became the world lord, he wasn't the one who made the decisions in the Nether Child universe. It was the major forces under him. Yin Ming was more like a mascot that was pushed out by others. He didn't have the slightest power in his hands. To put it bluntly, he was just a symbol. Of course, with the cultivation of the world lord, the major forces under him didn't dare to do anything to Yin Ming. At most, they could only deceive him. Xiaochen didn't say much about this. He came here to protect the Nether Child universe.
He didn't intervene in the internal affairs of others. Xiaochen smiled helplessly in his heart. Then, he said, Brother Yin Ming, although the people of the origin world have retreated, now is not the time to relax. Arrange for your people to guard around the spatial passage. If there's any movement, report it immediately. Although the origin world was repelled and many people were killed, Xiaochen wasn't sure if the origin world would give up. Therefore, the necessary defense was still necessary. Yin Ming naturally wouldn't refute this. He had long regarded Xiaochen as his idol. Therefore, he would absolutely agree to Xiaochen's words unconditionally. Therefore, Yin Ming nodded without hesitation. Don't worry, Brother Chen. I'll arrange it right away. After that, Yin Ming hurriedly left the hall. Obviously, he was going to arrange the task assigned by Xiaochen. Looking at Yin Ming's departure, Long Qing, who was at the side, said with a look of suspicion, Is this guy reliable or not? How can he be the world lord? He felt that Yin Ming wasn't very smart and his personality was too easygoing. He didn't seem to care about the internal affairs of the Nether Child universe. That was why Long Qing doubted Yin Ming's ability. Xiaochen smiled and said, It's their business. We shouldn't interfere. Just focus on fighting against the origin world. We don't need to care about other things. Xiaochen didn't want to get involved with the internal affairs of the Nether Child universe. He didn't care if Yin Ming could control the Nether Child universe or not, and he didn't have any other thoughts about it. With Xiaochen's current temperament, he didn't have much desire for power. Moreover, Xiaochen was now an ancient creature. With his strength, did he still need any power? He alone was enough to make any universe bow down to him. Therefore, Xiaochen really didn't care about these things now. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Long Qing didn't say anything more. Since Xiaochen had said so, then let him be. After a long journey without rest in the previous battle, Xiaochen and the others planned to take a rest first. As for the other matters, they could leave them to Yin Ming. After all, no matter how unreliable Yin Ming was, such a small matter shouldn't be a problem. It was just arranging for people to be responsible for guarding the surroundings of the spatial passage. It couldn't be easier. Xiaochen and the others came to the cave residence that Yin Ming had prepared for them. On the other side, Yin Ming found the sect masters and sect masters of the alliance under his command. This alliance was the actual controller of the Nether Child universe. It was formed by several powerful forces of the Nether Child universe. They respected Yin Ming as their leader, but in fact, they basically didn't report anything to Yin Ming. All the big and small matters were handled by them. Therefore, these major sects were the actual controllers of the Nether Child universe. Yin Ming was more like a mascot, a facade. Seeing Yin Ming coming, the sect masters and sect masters all stood up and saluted respectfully. Greetings, Alliance Master. No need to be so polite. I'm here to arrange something for you all to do, said Yin Ming. We will naturally obey the Alliance Master's order. It's not a big deal. The attack of the origin world has been repelled, but Brother Chen still asked us to arrange some guards around the spatial passage. We must be able to detect the movement of the origin world at the first moment. You all see if you can arrange some people to guard around the spatial passage. It was a very small matter. Upon hearing this, the few sect leaders nodded their heads in agreement. Upon seeing this, Yin Ming turned around and left. However, as soon as Yin Ming left, the respectful expression on their faces instantly disappeared. On the contrary, each of them had a disdainful smile on their faces. Does he deserve to be a world lord? I really don't know what kind of bullshit luck he has. He's simply an idiot. Indeed, he's an idiot. Humph. He even wants to order us around. Alright, no matter what, he's a world lord with great strength. Since he has said so, we have to pretend. Just send a few people. But what if the origin world really counterattacks? What should we do? What are you thinking about? This time, the origin world has suffered a great loss. Don't forget that we still have reinforcements.
There are more than 10 world lords. Even if the origin world counterattacks, what can they do? Don't worry. Now, we should think about the division of territories. I think you're right. Now that the Nether Child universe has basically fallen into our control, it's time to divide it again. Each of us will occupy a main continent. As for the other forces, let them go to other continents. Obviously, these people didn't listen to Yin Ming's words at all. They just thought that it would be fine if they just did it half-heartedly. What they really cared about was the competition for resources in the Nether Child universe. Now that these major forces had formed an alliance and fooled Yin Ming, it was obviously time for them to reap the rewards. Occupying the best place and occupying the most resources had become the most important thing for them. In their eyes, they didn't have the intention to deal with the origin world at all. Perhaps, in their opinion, Xiao Chen and the others were enough. They only needed to think about how to strengthen themselves and gain more benefits. Therefore, they just sent a few people and directly threw this matter to the back of their minds. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2887. The sect masters of the so-called Alliance of the Nether Child universe didn't care about the Nether Child universe at all. They only thought about themselves. At this moment, they didn't think about how to protect the Nether Child universe from the origin world's congratulations. Instead, they thought about how to seize more resources and make their sects stronger. This was the greed of human nature. Perhaps in their opinion, it was not their turn to protect the Nether Child universe because their power was not enough to resist the origin world. They had Yin Ming, Xiao Chen, Dongfang Yun, and the others to protect them. However, they obviously didn't think that the safety of the Nether Child universe had nothing to do with Xiao Chen's group. Frankly speaking, whether the Nether Child universe perished or not didn't affect Xiao Chen's group at all. At worst, Xiao Chen's group could just retreat. Moreover, Xiao Chen's group had helped the Nether Child universe because they didn't want the origin world to continue expanding. Secondly, it was because of their friendship. However, friendship was obviously not their duty. These people had completely misunderstood this point. Therefore, their perfunctory attitude would only harm themselves in the end. Moreover, from another perspective, doing so would only show that they were short-sighted. They didn't even understand that no egg could remain intact when the nest was overturned. They only thought about how to strengthen themselves and seize the opportunity to obtain more resources. However, they didn't think that once the Nether Child universe was breached, no matter how many resources they had, it would be useless because it would be meaningless. Of course, Xiao Chen's group didn't know about this yet. They also didn't know that these people were so bold that they dared to go against Yin Ming. In the minds of Xiao Chen's group, no matter which universe it was, the World Master was the absolute master. His words were the imperial edict. They had never seen anyone who dared to go against the World Master of their own universe. It was rare for them to rest in the cave dwelling. However, while resting, Xiao Chen was still discussing the origin world with Dongfang Yun, Xian Yuan Ling, and the others. Although they had successfully repelled the origin world this time, they had also made the origin world suffer a great loss. However, Xiao Chen wasn't sure if the origin world would counterattack or how strong it would be. Most importantly, Xiao Chen was most concerned about whether or not the primogenitors would take action personally. The primogenitors still haven't done anything. I don't know what they plan to do, Xiao Chen said. This was the question he was most concerned about. Dongfang Yun pondered for a moment before he said, I presume they won't make a move so soon. After all, the world's spirits haven't made a move yet. Once the primogenitors make a move, how will the world's spirits deal with them? In Dongfang Yun's opinion, the primogenitors wouldn't act so quickly. Unless they were fully prepared to deal with Little Qing, they wouldn't show themselves so easily. Of course, this wasn't absolute. Who knew what the progenitors were thinking? If the primogenitors don't make a move, then what about the ancient creatures below? The origin world also has the support of ancient creatures. That's possible. However, given our strength, there's nothing to worry about even if we were to go up against the Ancient Era's living beings. The Ancient Era's living beings were no longer a threat to Xiao Chen's group. At least, Xiao Chen's group wasn't afraid. Let's wait and see. By the way, Big Brother, contact Lin Yun and Beast Slave. Ask them about the situation on their side. In the end, Xiao Chen instructed Xin Yuanling. There was no problem on his side and they had successfully repelled the attack of the Origin World. However, there was still no news from Lin Yun, Mu Ling Xian, and Beast Slave. Xiao Chen intended to ask about the situation. Okay, I'll contact them now, Xin Yuanling nodded. Xiao Chen's side didn't relax at all. However, he didn't expect that the small matter that Yin Ming had arranged wouldn't be completed. At this time, a few people had been arranged to guard the space passage of the Nether Child Universe. However, the people arranged by the Nether Child Universe were more like bystanders than guards. Even if they didn't put in any effort, their cultivation was only at the Dao Gate realm. What was the point of having Dao Gate realm cultivators guarding this place? They should at least send some Emperor realm cultivators, right? Otherwise, if the Origin World really launched a counterattack, how could these Dao Gate realm ants be able to send back the news immediately? Xiao Chen obviously didn't know that the sect masters and sect masters could be so perfunctory. In the face of Yin Ming's personal order, they didn't seem to care at all. It was because of their perfunctory attitude that everyone had almost paid a heavy price. One day later, the Nether Child Universe seemed to have returned to normal. However, at this moment, the reinforcements sent by the Origin World finally arrived outside the Nether Child Universe. According to the Primal Ancestors, the main purpose of the reinforcements from the Origin World was to delay Xiao Chen's group. Otherwise, they would be able to leave the Nether Child Universe easily. Therefore, after arriving at the Nether Child Universe, the reinforcements from the Origin World didn't launch an attack immediately. The two World Lords in the lead only sent a small team to see if they could sneak into the Nether Child Universe through the space passage. In other words, they wanted to test the current defense of the Nether Child Universe. They thought that after Xiao Chen's group arrived, the defense of the Nether Child Universe would be impenetrable and it would be difficult to sneak in. However, the final result was beyond the Origin World's expectation. The Nether Child Universe was almost defenseless. There are only a few Dao Gate realm cultivators guarding the space passage. After passing through the space passage, the Vanguard only found a few Dao Gate realm cultivators guarding the space passage. After killing these people, the news quickly reached the ears of the two World Lords in the lead. Both of them were a little surprised when they heard that the defense of the Nether Child Universe was so lax. A few Dao Gate realm cultivators guarding the space passage? What did that mean? Did they really think that the Origin World wouldn't dare to come again? How could they ignore the Origin World? As expected, those Dao Gate realm cultivators didn't even have the time to react before they were killed. So, naturally, no one knew about the arrival of the reinforcements from the Origin World. It was even to the extent that no one paid any attention to their deaths. The two World Lords from the Origin World didn't expect the defense of the Nether Child Universe to be so weak. They looked at each other and spoke at the same time. Contact the Primal Ancestors. This may be a chance. If they could sneak into the Nether Child Universe and launch a sudden attack, it might have an unexpected effect. At the very least, they could catch them off guard. Of course, it was difficult to rely on their strength alone because Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yin were still in the Nether Child Universe. Therefore, they needed the support of the primogenitors. At the very least, they needed the help of the primogenitors. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2888. The two World Lords of the Origin World seemed to see an opportunity when the Nether Kiliakosm's defense was relaxed. With such a relaxed defense, the Origin World could launch a surprise attack and catch Xiao Chen's group off guard. Thinking of this, the two of them immediately sent a message back to the Origin World and asked for support from the primogenitors. Although it seemed to be an excellent opportunity, they still needed the support of the primogenitors. After all, with their strength alone, even if the surprise attack succeeded, they were no match for Xiao Chen's group. Their strength was not equal at all. In the origin world, Green Ancestor and another primogenitor were sitting together when they suddenly received the message. They looked at each other and Green Ancestor asked, "How is it?" According to the message, the Nether Kiliakosm's defense was relaxed. It was definitely a good opportunity to launch a surprise attack. If they could seize this opportunity, not only could they take down the Nether Kiliakosm, but they could also capture or kill Xiao Chen's group alive. Green Ancestor also knew that this was good news. In response, the other primogenitor was a little suspicious. Could this be Xiao Chen's trick? They shouldn't have made such a stupid mistake. This primogenitor was more cautious. After all, it was not the first time he had dealt with Xiao Chen. With Xiao Chen's personality, it was indeed impossible for him to make such a stupid mistake. Could it be that he was deliberately baiting them? However, Green Ancestor had a different opinion about this. "I think we can give it a try. Even if it's a bait, we can still escape unscathed. If it's really because they're relaxed, this is a great opportunity. It's worth the risk." Green Ancestor did not deny that Xiao Chen's group did this on purpose. He directly said that it was worth the risk. Of course, Green Ancestor had his own reasons for saying so. Whether it was true or not, it was worth a try to Green Ancestor. It would be best if it was true. Even if it was false, the primogenitors were completely capable of escaping unscathed. Besides, even if they did not succeed in the end, it was not a bad choice to test the strength of Xiao Chen's group. After hearing Qing Zu's words, the first ancestor pondered for a moment before he nodded. However, the two of them still summoned the other first ancestors. Soon after, numerous illusory figures gathered in the hall. All the first ancestors had gathered. They told everyone about the Nether Kiliakosm. Hearing Green Ancestor's words, Ancestor Mu was the first to agree and even took the initiative to go personally. Ancestor Mu did not have a good impression of Xiao Chen. Ancestor Mu did not have a good impression of Xiao Chen's to survive for so long. Ancestor Mu's group did not know what kind of luck he had. Ancestors too. Ancestor. As for the other primogenitors, they did not have any objections. After all, there was nothing wrong with giving it a try. If there was no chance, they could just retreat. Ancestor. Ancestor. Primogenitor ancestor. And an ancestor. The three of them set off immediately. With their speed, they could reach the Nether Kiliakosm in less than a day. They did not enter the Nether Kiliakosm rashly. The reinforcements from the origin world had been lingering outside the Nether Kiliakosm, waiting for Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu's arrival. The two world lords in the lead had already received the orders from the primogenitors. In less than a day, Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu, and Qin Yan met up with the reinforcements from the origin world. The two world lords were very respectful to the three of them. Even when he was facing Qin Yan, he did not dare to overstep his boundaries. Qin Yan was a tall and thin old man. He looked a little gloomy and did not speak much. He followed Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu and behaved very quietly. Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu already knew Qin Yan's personality, so they did not mind. When they came to the spatial spirit ship, Ancestor Qing asked first, "What's the situation now?" "Sir Primogenitor, we did not find anything unusual. The people around the space channel have been cleared. It seems that the Nether Kiliakosm has not discovered anything yet. Even the people in charge of guarding the channel have been cleared, but there is still no response. What is going on with the Nether Kiliakosm?" Ancestor Qing was a little surprised when he heard this. The Nether Kiliakosm was really ambitious. Of course, Ancestor Qing did not know that the sect masters in charge of guarding the channel did not have the mind to pay attention to this. They were only thinking about how to seize resources and strengthen themselves. They did not care about other things at all. After all, even if the sky fell, there were tall people to hold it up. Things went smoother than expected. After a moment of silence, Ancestor Qing said, "In that case, let's prepare to attack immediately." Although they had rushed here, Ancestor Qing did not want to waste time in the face of the current situation. He decided to attack immediately to avoid any unexpected problems. Ancestor Mu did not have any opinion about Ancestor Qing's arrangement. He also thought the same. No matter what the Nether Kiliakosm was up to, they should attack first. Although they still had doubts in their hearts, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu did not know that the Nether Kiliakosm was not up to any tricks at all. They were just careless and made such a low-level mistake. Even when the entrance of the channel was controlled by the origin world, it did not respond. Such a low-level mistake was impossible in the vast thousand domains, but this was the Nether Kiliakosm, and the people of the Nether Kiliakosm were all greedy people. They only thought about themselves and did not consider the overall situation. They were just a bunch of idiots. Following Ancestor Qing's order, the origin world's spatial spirit boats and starships entered the channel one by one and went straight to the Nether Kiliakosm. Qinyan, the main target this time, is Xiao Chen and the others. As for the Nether Kiliakosm, you don't have to worry about it. Inside the spatial spirit boat, Ancestor Qing said to Qinyan next to him. Ancestor Qing, don't worry. I know. But don't be too stubborn. It's best if we succeed this time. If we fail, it's okay. In short, once you encounter danger, choose to retreat immediately. There is no need to kill. Hearing Qinyan's answer, Ancestor Qing nodded, but he still reminded him with concern. There was no need to be too stubborn in this operation. If they could kill, then kill. If they could not, then forget it. Moreover, Ancestor Qing also understood that the current Xiao Chen was no longer the same as before. He could not be killed as he wished. Not to mention, there was still the world's spirit little Qing beside him. If they were stubborn in fighting, it would not do them any good. They might even put themselves in danger. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2889. Qing Zhu urged. Qinyan nodded and agreed. They had to end this battle as soon as possible. If they couldn't defeat little Qing or were stuck in a stalemate, Qing Zhu could only choose to retreat. Once the battle dragged on for too long, the heaven and earth spirit would definitely appear. At that time, the three of them wouldn't be little Qing's match at all. They might not even be able to escape. Qing Zhu urged. Qinyan nodded and agreed. They had to end this battle as soon as possible. If they couldn't defeat little Qing or were stuck in a stalemate, Qing Zhu could only choose to retreat. Once the battle dragged on for too long, the heaven and earth spirit would definitely appear. At that time, the three of them wouldn't be little Qing's match at all. They might not even be able to escape. Therefore, from the beginning, Qing Zhu had thought it through clearly. This battle was just a test. It would be best if they could succeed, but it didn't matter if they couldn't succeed. After all, they wouldn't lose anything. As for the casualties of the people below, it didn't matter at all. After all, with the strength of the origin world, the number of cultivators below wasn't small. They wouldn't feel bad about it. Their goal was clear. While the origin world launched a surprise attack, Xiao Chen was in the Nether Child universe. Although it was already late at night, Xiao Chen didn't rest or cultivate. Instead, he felt uneasy. Noticing that Xiao Chen's expression wasn't good, Qin Shuru, Flower Fairy, and the others asked with concern, "Husband, what's wrong?" "Nothing. I just feel uneasy. It's like something is going to happen." Xiao Chen frowned and said. He did feel uneasy, but Xiao Chen couldn't tell exactly what was going on. Logically, there shouldn't be anything wrong. The origin world didn't do anything strange. Lin Yun, Mu Ling Xian, and the beast slaves had all replied that everything was fine. In addition, Xiao Chen had asked Dean Ming to arrange guards around the space channel. As long as the people from the origin world appeared, they would be the first to discover them. Guards? Space channel? Thinking of this, Xiaochen felt even worse. He immediately asked Shen Yuanling to call Yin Ming over. The people in charge of guarding the spatial channel were from the Nether Child universe, and this was what Xiaochen was most worried about. Now that he was distracted, Xiaochen immediately wondered if something had happened to the spatial channel. Soon, Yin Ming rushed over. After receiving Xiaochen's summons, Yin Ming naturally didn't dare to delay. When he saw Xiaochen in the courtyard, Yin Ming shouted happily, "Brother Chen, you were looking for me?" For some reason, every time Yin Ming saw Xiaochen, he would be very excited. This made Xiaochen feel a little helpless. However, now was not the time to think about this. Looking at Yin Ming, Xiaochen directly asked, "How are the guards I asked you to arrange around the spatial passageway?" "There's no problem. I've already asked my subordinates to deal with it. There's nothing unusual now." Hearing Yin Ming's answer, Xiaochen was stunned. Then, he asked in a somewhat speechless manner, "You didn't arrange this yourself?" "Yes, I asked my subordinates to deal with it." "Is there any problem?" "Brother Chen. You mean, you haven't been to the spatial channel?" "Yes." Yin Ming had never been to the spatial channel, but he told Xiaochen that everything had been arranged. For a moment, Xiaochen didn't know what to say. Moreover, after such a long time, there was no news from the spatial channel. This was a little strange. Moreover, Yin Ming and his subordinates didn't send anyone to check it out. Suddenly, Xiaochen seemed to have grasped the key point. He immediately said to Shen Yuanling, "Big brother, go to the spatial channel and see what's the situation now." "All right." Upon hearing this, Shen Yuanling immediately left, while Xiaochen shook his head at Yin Ming. Of course, this matter couldn't be entirely blamed on Yin Ming. It could only be blamed on the sect masters under him. With Xiaochen's eyesight, how could he not understand that the sect masters under Yin Ming were just patronizing him? They even dared to obey the orders of a world lord. This guy must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. If someone dared to patronize him like this in the great wide world in the sacred palace, Xiaochen would definitely let that person know how to write the word death. But now, Xiaochen wasn't in the mood to blame Yin Ming. Everything would wait until Shen Yuanling returned. "I hope nothing happened," he murmured softly. But obviously, Xiaochen's hopes were dashed because not long after, Shen Yuanling sent back a message. He encountered the army of the origin world, and there wasn't a single cultivator from the Nether Child universe guarding the spatial passage. Shen Yuanling didn't dare to come into direct contact with the army of the origin world alone. After sending back the message, Shen Yuanling directly chose to retreat and planned to meet up with Xiaochen first. After receiving Shen Yuanling's message, Xiaochen stood up abruptly, looked at Yin Ming, and scolded, "Yin Ming, you've messed up the important matter. There's no one guarding the spatial passage at all. Now, the army of the origin world has entered the Nether Child universe and we still don't know." If he didn't have a bad feeling and asked Shen Yuanling to check the spatial passage in advance, perhaps he would still be in the dark even when the enemy was at his doorstep. "That's impossible." Yin Ming's expression changed drastically when he heard this, but Xiaochen didn't have the mood to talk nonsense with him. He waved his hand and interrupted. "Enough nonsense. Gather everyone and prepare to face the enemy." After asking Yin Ming to gather the people of the Nether Child universe, Xiaochen immediately contacted Dongfang Yun. Then, everyone soared into the sky and rushed towards Shen Yuanling. When Xiaochen's group met up with Shen Yuanling, they happened to encounter the army of the origin world. Yin Ming had also arrived with the people of the Nether Child universe. However, Xiaochen could not help but feel disdain when he saw the looks of fear on the faces of the leaders behind Yin Ming. It was these guys who had almost messed up the important matter. After dealing with the attack of the origin world, Xiaochen would never let these people have an easy time. Although he had nothing to do with the Nether Child universe, this time, even if Xiaochen had to use his power to suppress them and use his strength to forcefully intervene,
he would make these bastards pay the price. No matter what reason they had, Xiaochen had to give them sufficient punishment. Even if Yin Ming came to plead for mercy, it was useless. Of course, he would put this matter aside for the time being. His gaze once again fell on the army of the origin world. However, at this glance, Xiao Chen's face became completely solemn because Xiao Chen saw the figures of Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu, and Qin Yan on the leading spatial spirit ship. The two primogenitors had come in person. The matter was more serious than he had imagined. For a moment, Xiao Chen couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. If he hadn't made any preparations this time, it would have been really dangerous. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2890. Seeing the figures of Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu, Xiao Chen's face clearly became solemn. At the same time, his hatred for those sect masters and sect masters deepened. What a joke! The primal ancestors had shown up in person. If they were a little careless, Xiao Chen and the others would have been taken down in one fell swoop. Because of these bastards' apparent obedience, they had almost harmed everyone. Xiao Chen's heart was extremely cold. The sect lords and sect masters also felt Xiao Chen's unfriendly gaze at this time. Facing Xiao Chen, these people's first reaction was fear. After all, Xiao Chen's strength was there for all to see. Being stared at by Xiao Chen with such a cold gaze, it was impossible for them not to be scared. But soon, they comforted themselves. You are not the world lord of our nether child universe. What can you do to us? They knew why Xiao Chen was acting like this. It was because they didn't take Yin Ming's matter seriously at all. When Yin Ming asked them to arrange people to guard the spatial passage, they just did it perfunctorily. But it was because of this that the experts from the origin world could enter the nether child universe smoothly without them receiving any news. This was indeed their carelessness. But even so, what could Xiao Chen do? Could Xiao Chen trigger the people of their nether child universe? Don't forget that Xiao Chen wasn't the world lord of the nether child universe. As for Yin Ming, to be honest, these people didn't take him seriously. There were plenty of ways to fool them when the time came. Xiao Chen naturally didn't know and wasn't interested in guessing their thoughts. Even if he knew, Xiao Chen wouldn't care at all because he had already decided in his heart that he must teach these people a profound lesson this time. As for whether he was the world lord of the nether child universe or not, it wasn't in Xiao Chen's consideration at all. Even if he wasn't the world lord of the nether child universe, so what? Could he do nothing to them? Don't forget that Xiao Chen was now an ancient creature. Even Yin Ming had to lower his head in front of Xiao Chen. If Xiao Chen was determined to kill these guys, even Yin Ming wouldn't be able to protect them. Of course, this was not the time for Xiao Chen to fuss over this. He merely glanced at them coldly before using his spiritual force to send a voice transmission to Qin Shuru beside him. Shuru, send a message to little Qing. Xiao Chen wasn't arrogant enough to think that he and Dongfang Yun could deal with two primal ancestors. Qing and Ancestor Mu, there was Qin Yan, an ancient creature. Whether it was strength or numbers, Xiao Chen and the others didn't have an advantage. In terms of strength and numbers, Xiao Chen and the others didn't have an advantage. Therefore, Xiao Chen immediately asked Qin Shuru to contact little Qing and get her to come over as soon as possible. The only thing Xiao Chen could do was stall for time as much as possible. He didn't know how big the gap was between his current strength and the primal ancestors. Even so, Xiao Chen didn't have any intention of giving up. On the contrary, Xiao Chen couldn't help but feel excited as this was his first time fighting with a primal ancestor. Xiao Chen was ready for battle. When Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu saw Xiao Chen, their eyes flashed with murderous intent. Without hesitation, the two of them took a step forward and charged at Xiao Chen and Dongfang Yun. Kill! Ancestor Mu shouted in a deep voice. There wasn't much time to waste. They had to get rid of Xiao Chen and the others as soon as possible. Therefore, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu didn't waste any time and chose to attack immediately.
Facing the attacks of the two primal ancestors, Xiaochen and Dongfang looked at each other. Instead of retreating, they advanced and faced the two primal ancestors head-on. They couldn't run away at this time. They could only fight and stall until little Qing arrived. Seeing Xiaochen and Dongfang advancing instead of retreating, Ancestor Mu snorted coldly. "Humph, you're courting death." He took the initiative to attack Xiaochen. Ancestor Mu had always wanted to kill Xiaochen as soon as possible. The ant in front of him was like a thorn stuck in the throat of the origin world. It made the origin world very uncomfortable. This time, Ancestor Mu finally seized this opportunity. If he didn't kill Xiaochen, how could he eliminate the hatred in his heart? He attacked with his full strength without any mercy. At this moment, Ancestor Mu no longer regarded Xiaochen as a dispensable ant because this ant in their eyes had repeatedly caused trouble for the origin world. "Die!" Ancestor Mu shouted and slapped down with his palm. Facing Ancestor Mu's attack, Xiaochen didn't dare to be careless. He immediately took out the dustless sword. Sword Realm also spread crazily and instantly enveloped the entire space. In Sword Realm, Xiaochen's strength was maximized. Facing Ancestor Mu's palm, he slashed out fiercely and instantly used Emperor's Sword. Now that Xiaochen used Emperor's Sword, it didn't consume a lot of spiritual energy like before because the spiritual energy in Xiaochen's body couldn't be compared to before. The consumption of Emperor's Sword wasn't small, but it was nothing to the current Xiaochen. Xiaochen swung his sword, and the blade clashed with the palm print. It was obvious that Xiaochen's sword was at a disadvantage when the two clashed. However, it did not crumble like a piece of rotten wood. Instead, it held on tenaciously. It had to be said that Xiaochen held on for the first time with Ancestor Mu. At least, Ancestor Mu couldn't do anything to Xiaochen in the first attack. In the end, Xiaochen's sword was indeed shattered by Ancestor Mu's palm. However, after consuming too much energy, Ancestor Mu's palm actually didn't have much power. At least, it didn't pose any threat to Xiaochen. Even if he took it head-on, it wouldn't be a big deal. Xiaochen easily crushed Patriarch Mu's palm print. He was at a disadvantage in the first clash, but he was able to block Patriarch Mu's attack. This was also the difference in strength between Xiaochen and Ancestor Mu. To put it bluntly, Xiaochen was weaker than Ancestor Mu, but it wouldn't be easy for Ancestor Mu to defeat or kill Xiaochen. At this moment, Xiaochen displayed strength on the same level as an ancient life form. Ancestor Mu knew that he was facing an ancient life form when facing Xiaochen. Xiaochen's strength had undergone a complete metamorphosis. Xiaochen, who used to be an ant that could be easily crushed, had now fully grown. Even as a primogenitor, it would not be easy for him to kill Xiaochen now. Thinking of this, Ancestor Mu's anger couldn't help but erupt. This was simply an insult to him. Why didn't he kill this ant with a slap? Instead, he gave him a chance to grow. Ancestor Mu looked at Xiaochen with murderous intent in his eyes. His cold gaze was like a knife that shot straight at Xiaochen. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2891. The stronger Xiaochen was, the harder it was for Ancestor Mu to accept. It was simply a form of provocation. Imagine a person whom he could have easily squashed to death had suddenly become an existence that he had to be wary of. No one would feel good if they were in his shoes. The stronger Xiaochen was, the harder it was for Ancestor Mu to accept. It was simply a form of provocation. Imagine a person whom he could have easily squashed to death had suddenly become an existence that he had to be wary of. No one would feel good if they were in his shoes. However, Xiaochen didn't think too much about it. Xiaochen was indeed a little excited after successfully taking on Ancestor Mu's attack because Xiaochen understood that he was indeed strong enough to fight a primogenitor. Although he was at a disadvantage, he wasn't as helpless as before. Xiaochen hated that feeling of powerlessness because it made him feel hopeless. However, everything was different now. He had the strength to fight a primogenitor, which made Xiaochen the happiest.
Moreover, Xiaochen wasn't too upset about the fact that he was at a disadvantage because before the battle even began, Xiaochen already knew that even though he had undergone a transformation, he still wasn't on equal footing with the primogenitors. It couldn't be helped. It was something that couldn't be changed. Therefore, it wasn't unacceptable for Xiaochen to be at a disadvantage. Xiaochen's fighting spirit rose in his eyes. It was his first time fighting a primogenitor and he even had the strength to contend with him. This time, it was Xiaochen's turn to take the initiative to attack Ancestor Mu. Seeing that Xiaochen actually dared to take the initiative to attack him, Ancestor Mu was even more enraged. "You're courting death." Ancestor Mu shouted coldly and met him head-on. As soon as the two of them came into contact, an intense battle broke out. The speed was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Even a world lord like Yin Ming could not capture the movements of Xiaochen and Ancestor Mu. On the other side, Dongfang Yun and Ancestor Qing were the same. Both of them were fighting fiercely without showing any mercy. Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu were the same. Although they had the upper hand against Dongfang Yun, it was impossible for them to take him down in a short period of time. It seems that the rumors are true. They have all completed the transformation of their life forms. Compared to Ancestor Mu, Ancestor Qing was clearly much calmer. While fighting with Dongfang Yun, Ancestor Qing thought to himself. Xiaochen and Dongfang Yun had both reached the Ancient Era's realm. Lin Yun, Mu Ling Xian, and the others had probably reached the Ancient Era's realm as well. If that was the case, the number of Ancient Era's creatures in the Genesis land would surpass that of the Origin world. It wasn't good news. Don't underestimate the difference in the number of Ancient Era's creatures because even the primogenitors couldn't ignore an Ancient Era's creature. It was certain that the primogenitors would have a headache if the number of Ancient Era's creatures was too big. They wanted to kill Dongfang Yun and Xiaochen, but things didn't go as they wished. With the two's strength, even Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu couldn't do it in a one-on-one situation. However, one should not forget that besides Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu, Qin Yan had also come along. Ancestor Qing was glad that Qin Yan had come along. It was difficult to kill both of them at once. Ancestor Qing made a prompt decision and asked Qin Yan and Ancestor Mu to kill Xiaochen together. Since he could not kill all of them, he naturally had to find a way to eliminate the one who posed the greatest threat. In Ancestor Qing's opinion, although they were both ancient creatures, Xiaochen was obviously more of a threat than Dongfang Yu. In fact, he was much more of a threat. Qin Yan didn't object to Ancestor Qing's order and attacked Xiaochen together with Ancestor Mu. Facing the joint attack of a primogenitor and an Ancient Era's creature, Xiaochen's pressure suddenly increased. Xiaochen was already at a disadvantage when he was facing Ancestor Mu alone. Now that Qin Yan had joined the battle, the pressure naturally increased. Xiaochen was instantly suppressed by Ancestor Mu and Qin Yan. He could only hold on bitterly. Seeing this scene, Xian Yuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others, who were fighting fiercely with the other martialists in the Origin world, were also very worried. However, there was nothing they could do about it because a battle between Ancient Era's creatures wasn't something they could interfere with. Although World Lords and Ancient Era's creatures seemed to be only one level apart, the gap between them couldn't be explained on the surface. The two were fundamentally different. If World Lords were considered to be in the category of martialists, then Ancient Era's creatures and primogenitors were the children of heaven and earth. They were the children of heaven and earth. They possessed strength and advantages that martialists couldn't compare to. After completely suppressing Xiaochen, Ancestor Mu's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Currently, Ancestor Mu didn't care about bullying with numbers or the dignity of a primogenitor. Anyway, Ancestor Mu only wanted one result, which was to kill Xiaochen. Therefore, Ancestor Mu didn't resist at all even if he joined forces with Qin Yan. If Ancestor Mu wanted to join forces with others to kill Xiaochen in the past, he would definitely refuse without hesitation. After all, wasn't it an insult to himself to join forces with others when facing an ant? However, Ancestor Mu obviously didn't think that way now. Xiaochen's growth was too fast, so he had to kill him as soon as possible.
He couldn't give him any more chances. Only by killing him would he be able to end this once and for all. Therefore, Ancestor Mu didn't care about bullying him or joining forces with others. There was a change in Ancestor Mu's mentality, which made Xiaochen suffer. He was struggling to withstand the joint attacks of a primogenitor and an ancient era's creature. Xiaochen didn't dare to face them head-on at all. He could only dodge while looking for an opportunity to counterattack. Unfortunately, he didn't find an opportunity to counterattack. Instead, he was hit several times. Although Xiaochen tried his best to avoid being hit at critical moments, the attacks of the two primogenitors still injured Xiaochen quite badly. There was a trace of blood at the corner of Xiaochen's mouth, and there were several wounds on his body, especially the one on his chest where Ancestor Mu had punched him. Although it was separated by his clothes, one could clearly see that half of Xiaochen's chest had caved in. It was also because of Xiaochen's high cultivation and strong vitality. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have been able to fight with such injuries. He might even have been killed. Facing a primogenitor and an ancient era's creature at the same time is indeed quite stressful. I don't know when little Qing will arrive, he thought helplessly. Xiaochen didn't think about how to win because there was no hope at all. Now, Xiaochen was only thinking about how to stall for time until little Qing arrived. Only little Qing could resolve the current situation. Or rather, other ancient era's creatures would arrive. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2892. While Xiaochen was struggling to hold on, little Qing, who was in the land of creation, also rushed to the Nether Child universe as soon as she received Dongfang Yun's message. While Xiaochen was struggling to hold on, little Qing, who was in the land of creation, also rushed to the Nether Child universe as soon as she received Dongfang Yun's message. Thinking that time was tight, little Qing didn't bring anyone with her and rushed to the Nether Child universe alone. With little Qing's speed, it only took a quarter of an hour to reach the Nether Child universe from the land of creation. But could Xiaochen and the others hold on for a quarter of an hour? A quarter of an hour might seem short, but don't forget that Xiaochen was now facing the joint attack of a primogenitor and an ancient being alone. A quarter of an hour was already very dangerous. Little Qing kept increasing her speed in order to reach the Nether Child universe in the shortest time possible. On the other hand, although Xiaochen didn't give up, the difference in strength and the fact that he was facing two opponents at the same time made Xiaochen's condition worse and worse. Qinyan punched Xiaochen in the back again and sent him flying. At the same time, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. However, before Xiaochen had the time to catch his breath, Ancestor Mu's attack had arrived as expected. He instantly appeared above Xiaochen and slammed his palm down on Xiaochen. The terrifying giant palm of spiritual power came crashing down on Xiaochen like a mountain. If this palm hit its target, needless to say, even if Xiaochen was not, he would be seriously injured. At that time, Ancestor Mu and Qinyan would be able to take his life effortlessly. Seeing that Xiaochen was already seriously injured, and now that he had been hit by Qinyan, Patriarch Mu sneered. "You can't dodge this palm, right?" As if he had already seen the scene of Xiaochen being killed, Xiaochen gritted his teeth and shouted in a deep voice in the face of Ancestor Mu's attack. Realm Flash. At the critical moment, Xiaochen executed Realm Flash. Within the Sword Realm, Xiaochen's figure instantly vanished, and Patriarch Mu's attack missed. He could be considered to have successfully escaped the calamity. His mouth was constantly gasping for breath. That moment just now was indeed extremely thrilling. If he had been just a little bit slower, he was afraid that he would have ended up dead. Xiaochen wouldn't dare to take a full-powered attack from an ancestor head-on. Even if he was in peak condition, he wouldn't dare to do so, let alone now. If he was hit by Patriarch Mu's palm, it would be difficult to deal with. There was a lingering fear in his heart, while Ancestor Mu's face was ashen. He thought that the palm strike just now was a sure thing, but who would have thought that Xiaochen would use the boundary flash to dodge it in the end? This simply infuriated Ancestor Mu. Why was this ant so difficult to deal with? Was he really an unkillable cockroach? Under the joint attack of an ancestor and an ancient life form, he could actually hold on for so long. This was a little ridiculous. Xiao Chen's tenacity was beyond Patriarch Mu's imagination, and at the same time, it also angered him even more. He looked at Xiao Chen coldly. Patriarch Mu didn't say any more nonsense. He once again attacked without giving Xiao Chen any time to rest. As time passed, Xiao Chen was indeed getting more and more difficult to hold on, while Patriarch Mu and Qin Yan's attacks were getting stronger and stronger. Xiao Chen's situation was getting more and more dangerous. Seeing that Xiao Chen was almost killed several times, Dong Fangyan had the intention to help share some of the pressure with Xiao Chen, but with Patriarch Qing by her side, she wouldn't give him this opportunity at all. What? You want to help? You'd better take care of yourself first, Patriarch Qing said faintly. They didn't think of killing Dong Fangyan because they didn't have enough time. If they weren't mistaken, the world's spirit little Qing should be on the way now. Therefore, there wasn't enough time for Qing Zhu to kill these two people. Therefore, from the beginning, Patriarch Mu only wanted to kill Xiao Chen. As long as he could kill Xiao Chen, this trip would be considered a success. As for Dong Fangyan, there was no harm in sparing his life for the time being. Patriarch Mu naturally saw Xiao Chen's current situation. Although he had to admit that Xiao Chen's tenacity had indeed impressed him, so what? With the current situation, Xiao Chen definitely wouldn't be able to hold on for long. You didn't want to kill me from the beginning? Your target is Xiao Chen, Dong Fangyan shouted coldly after hearing Patriarch Mu's words. How could Dong Fangyan not understand Patriarch Mu's thoughts? From the beginning, when Patriarch Mu asked Qin Yan to cooperate with Patriarch Mu to besiege Xiao Chen, he didn't want to kill Patriarch Mu at all. From the beginning to the end, Patriarch Mu's goal was to kill Xiao Chen. Patriarch Mu didn't deny it. Instead, he straightforwardly admitted, that's right. Time doesn't allow, so I can only take a step back. If I had to choose between the two of you, I would undoubtedly choose Xiao Chen because compared to you, Xiao Chen is a greater threat to us. He should be eliminated as soon as possible. Patriarch Mu didn't refute or deny it. After all, the matter had already reached this point. So what if Dong Fangyan saw through his thoughts? With him here, Dong Fangyan wouldn't help Xiao Chen. As for the others, they were even less qualified to help. They couldn't even get close to the battlefield. Xiao Chen's fate seemed to be sealed because Xiao Chen's body was already dyed red with blood, and his aura was extremely chaotic. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Xiao Chen had reached his limit. It wasn't easy for Xiao Chen to last until now when facing the siege of a primogenitor and an ancient being. However, everything had a limit, and now, Xiao Chen had reached his limit. If there were no other variables, Xiao Chen would be dead for sure this time. Ancestor Mu naturally had the deepest feeling about this. Looking at Xiao Chen, the corner of Ancestor Mu's mouth had already curled into a smile. Just one more attack, and Xiao Chen would be dead for sure. Given Xiao Chen's current situation, whether it was his or Qin Yan's attack, Xiao Chen didn't have the ability to withstand it. As long as either one of them could hit Xiao Chen would definitely die. From Patriarch Mu's point of view, Xiao Chen was on his last breath and could be killed at any time. He was full of confidence and thought that it would be a matter of one hit. Besides, Xiao Chen's current condition was so severe that his physical strength was severely depleted, and his speed had decreased a lot. It was already impossible for him to dodge the attacks of the two. Finally, they could kill this damned ant. However, just as Patriarch Mu and Qin Yan were about to deal the final blow to Xiao Chen, a spatial tunnel suddenly appeared in the sky. A huge pressure instantly spread out from the spatial tunnel. Both Patriarch Mu and Patriarch Mu's expression changed drastically when they felt this pressure. Chapter 2893. Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu's faces darkened at the sudden appearance of the spatial passageway and the terrifying pressure that emanated from it. As primogenitors, they were naturally familiar with the aura. Who else could it be other than little Qing? The sudden appearance of the spatial passageway and the terrifying pressure that emanated from it made Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu's faces darken. As primogenitors, they were naturally familiar with the aura. Who else could it be other than little Qing? Damn it, it came so quickly. Even Ancestor Qing, who had always been calm, couldn't help but curse. Looking at Xiao Chen's current state, it was obvious that he was only one blow away from being killed. However, little Qing, the heaven and earth spirit, had arrived just in time. Ancestor Qing was filled with regret. Needless to say, Ancestor Mu was filled with confidence just a moment ago. However, in the blink of an eye, all his hopes were extinguished. Even so, Ancestor Mu did not give up on his last hope. He bellowed and attacked fiercely. I don't believe it. Ancestor Mu didn't believe that Xiao Chen was really unkillable. Even though little Qing had appeared, Ancestor Mu still attacked furiously. In the face of Ancestor Mu's attack, Xiao Chen's eyes were in a daze. He didn't have the strength to dodge at all and could only watch as Ancestor Mu's attack came towards him. However, when the attack arrived in front of Xiao Chen, it was blocked by a cyan barrier. In front of the cyan barrier, Patriarch Mu's attack did not break through at all and was easily blocked. Needless to say, it was definitely little Qing's doing. Ancestor Mu watched as his best attack was blocked by little Qing. Then, a figure appeared in front of Xiao Chen out of thin air. He had the appearance of a young man with long black hair. This was little Qing. As a spirit of heaven and earth, his appearance was not important to little Qing because he could change into any appearance he liked. At this moment, little Qing appeared before Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu in his human form. The cold glint in Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu's eyes involuntarily surged when they saw little Qing appear. On the other hand, little Qing first glanced at Xiao Chen. Although his injuries were serious, at least his life was not in danger. Only then did little Qing relax. As long as Xiao Chen still had a single breath left, with his ancient life form cultivation base, he would not have any problems. He would only need some time to recover. This was the terrifying aspect of ancient life forms. Since Xiao Chen wasn't in any danger, Xiao Qing's gaze naturally landed on Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu. She hadn't seen these two old friends for a long time. They were like blood brothers. Xiao Qing revealed a smile on her face, but it wasn't a smile at all. Instead, it was filled with endless coldness. Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu, it's been so many years. I never thought that we'd meet again. We'll meet again sooner or later, won't we? Ancestor Qing's expression was gloomy, but his tone was still calm. That's right. Although the primogenitors had escaped from the land of creation, they also knew that they would meet little Qing again sooner or later because there were some things that needed an ending and an answer. Compared to Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu didn't even reply. He only snorted coldly. Little Qing didn't care about that. She looked at Chenyan and smiled. Chenyan, I never thought that even you would side with the origin world. Everyone has their own ambitions. Haha, everyone has their own ambitions. In that case, it shouldn't be a problem for me to treat all of you as enemies, right? Since I'm here today, the three of you don't have to leave. Murderous intent gathered in little Qing's eyes as she spoke. Ancestor Mu said coldly, Spirit of heaven and earth, you don't have to be so arrogant. We still don't know who will emerge victorious. Today, we're leaving and you can't stop us. Ancestor Mu didn't say anything harsh to little Qing. Although he had a bad temper, he wasn't a fool. Currently, they only had Qin Zhu, Chenyan, and himself. They didn't have much chance of winning against little Qing. If all the primogenitors gathered together, they would have the ability to fight little Qing. However, it was impossible with just the three of them. Therefore, Ancestor Mu knew very well that since little Qing had appeared, they should leave. There was no need to think about fighting at all because they couldn't win at all. In response, little Qing sneered and said, do you think it's that easy to leave just like that? No need to talk nonsense. Let's go. This time, Ancestor Qing said directly before Ancestor Mu could speak. Then, Ancestor Qing took out a wooden tablet from his storage ring and tossed it into the air. As he formed a seal, the wooden tablet instantly exploded and formed a black hole in the starry sky. Space origin? Little Qing's eyes revealed a strange look when she saw the black hole appear. The power of the black hole obviously didn't come from the primogenitors but from the space origin. However, according to the beast slaves, although the space origin didn't intend to help the land of creation, it didn't intend to help the origin world either. Why could the primogenitors borrow the power of the space origin? After all, the space origin and the time origin were two extremely special existences in the world. Even little Qing, who was the spirit of heaven and earth, couldn't do much to them. It wasn't that little Qing wasn't a match for the two primogenitors, but because the two primogenitors had special interests and couldn't kill her. After all, the world couldn't exist without time and space. Spirit of heaven and earth, you've lived in the land of creation for a long time, so there are many things you don't know. The space origin didn't intend to help the origin world, but for some reason, it had to return the favor. So, this power is its compensation to us. The primogenitors in the space origin must have a history that Xiao Chen and the others didn't know about. At this moment, with the help of the space origin's power, Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu, Qin Yan, and many experts of the origin world were sucked into the black hole. The black hole would send them away safely. Little Qing didn't do anything during the entire process. Even if she did, it would be useless. Little Qing watched as Green Ancestor and the others left, but at this time, she was thinking about the space origin. The space origin and the time origin were two extremely special existences. To little Qing, they were an unstable factor. It seems that I have to find a time to have a good talk with these two siblings, little Qing murmured softly and watched Qing Zhu and the others leave with a calm expression. At this moment, Ancestor Qing and the others were covered by the power of the space origin. It was impossible to interrupt them, so little Qing could only let them go. However, it wasn't a big deal. At least she had come in time to save Xiao Chen and made Ancestor Qing and the others return empty-handed. She could accept this result. Please collect, vote, recommend. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.